This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Southampton Select Board for August 29th at 6:01 p.m. And to start, could we stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Yeah. John, you had something you would like to say first?
Yeah, I just want to point out that tomorrow is the first day of school and the 490 students that will be attending Norris. There will be 11 school buses on the road tomorrow, big yellow things with the red lights. If we can all just use patience and observe the bus regulations, it would be appreciative. And welcome back to school.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hope everyone has a great school year. I know some of the pre-K, I think, already started. Is that right? So that's great. And we have also, just to remind people, Monday is Labor Day, and the town hall will be closed on Monday as well. So that's what we know. Anybody here for open time for the public? I think you're here for a different reason. All right. Good. Well, I think we will get going, seeing nobody here. We have a very busy agenda tonight, but I'm going to do my best to move us through this. We're not going to speed through it. We're going to deal with it, but there's a couple of things that are on the list that are on the agenda that are a little bit more like parking lot items so that we don't forget them. The backup paperwork didn't get distributed in time, so I'll take advantage of that and we'll put that discussion off until the following meeting. So we have two reports tonight. The first one is, well, since Dylan is here, Dylan and the Parks Commission. And then we'll have the Greenway Rail Trail Committee report as well. And so thanks, everybody. And like I say, we'll try to get through the agenda in a fairly efficient way. I know we've got at least 3 members, and 4 and 5 that I see in the room that have got kids to get ready for school. So we'll try and not be here to midnight, all right? That's a promise. Go ahead, Dylan, please.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me tonight to come speak about what's going on at Parks. Hopefully you've all received the written report that I submitted last week and had a chance to review it briefly. I'm not going to go through the entire thing. I'd like to hit the highlights and a few other points, kind of discuss what we're currently working on, what my goals as chair are for the next year, and then projects that we're looking at in the short term and the long term. Currently, I think the 2 big things I'm excited about, the first one being a very short one, is the fountain across the street.
Yes.
Pat Martin, one of our members, took a ton of his time out there cleaning that out. I was down there for many hours with him, figuring out the drainage system, rewiring the pump, got it all up and running. So we've been fiddling with the nozzles, but I think we found a happy medium right now that keeps water in the fountain and keeps it running. And we've seen a bunch of people on the fields enjoying it. So we're happy to see that's up and going.
Nice to see, yeah.
The other big project we're working on right now is Magic for Maddie Playground. I wish we could take some credit for that, but really can't. This has all really been driven by the Magic for Maddie group. They've taken an incredible effort, a really sad, tragic event, and turned it into something positive for the town. Right now, my understanding is that the playground equipment's been ordered. We're doing a community build on it. The site prep contract has been awarded, and they are expanding it slightly. They're going to include a swing structure as well, but it stays primarily within the same footprint that we originally designated and does not conflict with any other of the master plan implementation that we would want to do down the road. Basketball and tennis courts are the resurfacing will hopefully be happening soon. It was slated for this summer. Unfortunately, they've experienced the same weather problems that we all have. They have not been able to move on that because they need a period of dry and warm weather, which has been few and far between this summer. So hopefully that will be happening soon. As part of that, we hope to also replace and upgrade the basketball hoops on there to make it a more usable place. And we're also working on the Conan Park master plan. We've been working with GZA as one of the preferred vendors to complete a master plan for the park. things we're looking at specifically are field utilization. Are we using this in the most efficient and appropriate way? What upgrades do we need to make to the current existing infrastructure there? And what infrastructure should we be looking at the future at potentially installing? So I'm hoping in the next month or so to have a finalized Conan Park master plan, which I'll be happy to share with the select board once that's completed. As part of the Conan Park improvements, we also did have a park grant for the installation of a spray deck and walking path. Unfortunately, due to a lot of delays in multiple small delays, I should say. The biggest one being trying to figure out the drainage issues. If you weren't aware, Conan Park is basically impermeable. That field is wet constantly. So we had to dig test pits and kind of go back to the drawing board several times to try and find a way to install it that would properly handle runoff and assuage the concerns of the Board of Health regarding that water being appropriately distributed off the field and not be standing. Unfortunately, the grant did expire. But we do have the equipment and the design that were paid for through that grant, and we're looking to either available funds that we have or alternative funding sources so that we can get that project to completion. That is a goal of ours. Okay. As far as what I'd like to do for my first year as chair is my number one priority right now is getting a better understanding of our budget, our income sources, and our expenditures. I've been reviewing all the accounts, going through all the fee arrangements and determining whether those are appropriate, and also kind to come up with a capital plan, which is part of the master plan in Conant, as well as looking at all of our fields and what do we see ourselves needing over the next 1, 5, and 10 years, and setting our rates so that we can accomplish those goals without having to go back to the taxpayers for more money, so that the users of the park are the ones who are going to be supporting that growth going down the road. Pavilion rentals, as you see this year, we increased the rates there. Unfortunately, we didn't see any income increase from that. I'm guessing that was probably because this summer was terrible for weather. So I think the rentals, I'm hoping next year we'll see a bounce up in that. And we are seeing increased field usage. I mean, the number of kids playing sports in the town is incredible. 325 kids signed up for soccer, 180 or so kids playing baseball. Football's down there right now is a little over 100 kids playing that, 70% of which are Southampton residents. If you know it's Easthampton football, the vast majority are in fact from Southampton. Other sports that other towns are beginning to look at are lacrosse and field hockey. Those are growing programs. A lot of our kids are leaving to Westfield or Easthampton or Northampton to play those. So there might be the opportunity to look at, do we want to maybe consider having an organization under SYA, start looking at developing those sports, which kind of leads me into what we want to look at for our future growth plans. I think the short-term one we're looking at is the Conan Park improvements under the master plan. The first one probably being that playground equipment that reached the end of its life about 10 years ago and is still there. I think that's something that we'd look towards doing some private fundraising for, and maybe using CPA funds for as well. But the bigger plan, the longer plan that we're looking at here, which all leads from that increased sports in town, is field usage. Ultimately, we are out of space. We have currently the baseball fields, which are used for fall ball, are also used for soccer. The fields at Labrie don't accommodate to what we need. That football, where football's playing, soccer wanted to put an 11v11 field because which is a very large field, but they've had to move some things around at Norris. So every year it's kind of been a shuffling act of figuring out where can we place all the fields so that we can adequately meet the needs of the kids in town. And if we do in fact end up expanding sports, and as the town is growing with more kids, these numbers are only going to grow. So it's not a problem for today, it's not a problem for this year, but it's something that we should probably start thinking about of solutions, either acquiring more land or looking for gifts or whatever we need to do to try and expand. Working with open spaces, I think it's a great opportunity for some cross-commission collaboration between open spaces and conservation to finally, and that can be used as field space and preserving open space. So that's just something I kind of wanted to start the conversation with tonight. And that's all I have. I tried to keep it to 5 minutes, but I'm slightly over.
No, you did good.
Madam Speaker?
Yes.
May I respond?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dylan. From my time on the Parks Commission, I completely agree with the approach you're taking, first addressing Conan Park. You're spot on there. And as that commission has spoken about before with SYAA, we're running out of space. And I agree with you that the long-term plan, maybe after the Conant Park master plan, is those calculations and projections of field usage to build the case for why we need to add more recreational space for sports in town. So thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Comments, questions? I just have one quickie, just to clarify, the Labrie Field is used primarily for soccer, is that right?
The baseball fields have been getting increased use. There's actually a couple wooden bat leagues that are private usage that do use those fields on the weekends and some weeknights for games. That field does get some usage in the spring for baseball when they can field a team that's old enough to use that field. It's a large field. Mm-hmm. The remaining space is primarily used for soccer, and in the fall it is used for football as well. They're using if you drove into the parking lot, the field down to the left at the very end is what they're currently using.
But some of those, like baseball and football, those are regional or by town. They're not necessarily Southampton leagues, right? They're
the regional one's correct. So that's a bonus for us. I'm glad the field's getting used. It's great usage fees. SYA obviously gets preference and whenever those fields get. But if it's getting used, it's fenced in. We're not, tearing fences down to build more fields. Yeah. The league that we do have coming in the fall, I had a conversation with them. They were very amenable to working with soccer to share that outfield space should that be necessary. So we're working, really trying to maximize and utilize every square foot that we have.
And where exactly will the Maddie's Playground be located at Labrie? Down far right? Is that
sort of? So if you drove into the parking lot, it's kind of got that turnaround thing. There's a little shed there right now. There's a little plateaued area. There's a standpipe that's got a metal cage over it. There's an electrical panel. That's where the field house is going to go. Okay. If you can imagine, kind of drove in, you drove straight across, you'd drive into the field house, just to the right, kind of where the abutting neighborhood is. Yeah. It's a long and narrow section. It's going to end up being about, I think it's 40 feet wide by about 115 feet long or so. It's going to be situated to the right there. But then the nice part is with this, they're going to build the walkway into there, which is actually ties into the current master plan for the field house. So it kind of checks two of the boxes off for the master plan too. Right. So it's
that would
really
help make it ADA accessible, I'm sure, too, in terms of that.
Yes.
That notion. Yeah.
That there. Yep.
And is the idea that maybe this could get started construction-wise this fall, or is it? Really
I believe the plan is October, if we can get. I think I talked to Juliet Locke, who is kind of spearheading this part of it. I believe they've got their order in for all the equipment, and it's just going to be scheduling. But I believe they're shooting for October to have it site prepped and the install to happen.
That was the last I was aware of, too.
Yeah. That's good if they can do that. Great. Well, they've got a very energetic group, I know, of parents and friends of the family that are working on that, and so it's great to have that community build. I mean, that really will advance things a lot, I'm sure. Yeah. And just kudos on raising the fees, too, for the pavilion rental rate. At some point, it would be good just to print new forms that have the right form on it, so we don't have to scratch it out. I mean, if I were going to rent it and I saw that, it used to be 150 and now it's 200, I think I'd maybe think twice. I don't know.
I don't think I was aware that there is a form that had the wrong, so thank you for pointing that out. That is absolutely something I will address.
We could just update that.
That will happen, absolutely.
Hey, so just cross-referencing information here, we also have tonight a list of all the open positions, and there's an open position on the Master Plan Implementation Committee for a park representative on that committee.
The master plan, yeah.
So just let you know.
I think it was Paula Mack on that last time, because if it is, she's agreeing.
She was on open space. I don't think she was, no, before it was Megan Gentile, and then when she left, she couldn't be on it because she was no longer a town resident, so she left master plan, and Parks never filled it again.
I think we had someone volunteer for it. Let me double check my minutes, and I think I'll get that to you.
Yeah,
I don't want to drag on the time here, but I just wanted to point that out.
Well, thank you.
No, that'll be good, because then we can
see that. You put this in here. That was
some organization on that one too. Good.
Great.
If any other questions, if not, okay.
Good job.
Thank you, Dylan.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, and congratulations on being the new chair. And sounds like you're getting your feet more than wet.
Trying to. Thank you.
Good. Thanks a lot.
Have a good night.
He keeps me on my toes. I get emails from him all the time.
I bet he does. All right. Next was supposed to be the Greenway Rail Trail Committee.
And Mark sends his apologies. He'll be here in 5 minutes.
Okay. Well. Okay. Let's do a couple things on the agenda, and then we'll come back around. And I know we've got Board of Health waiting on a couple things here too. So how about we skip, if nobody minds, just to keep the agenda moving here. Let's jump to the town administrator report.
Sure. Let's see. We have been informed by Eversource that they will be doing vegetation work in the area of their transmission right-of-way adjacent to White Loaf Road and Middle Road. On August 4th, the Edwards Library had damage from a lightning strike to one of their 2 septic pumps and the electronic septic control board. The cost of replacing these items was $5,453. We have received an insurance recovery check from our insurer, Maya, in the amount of $4,453. We have a $1,000 deductible on these types of claims. The Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency has reached out and invited the EMDs and Select Board members to an informal meet and greet with MEMA Director Dawn Brantley and Deputy Director Pat Carnevale at their MEMA West Region 3 and 4 headquarters in Agawam on September 7th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Please let me know if you would like to attend, as we need to RSVP to that. Our annual inspection of the town hall elevator by the state was done on Friday, August 25th. There was one deficiency, so we have received a 90-day temporary inspection approval. The emergency phone was not operating properly. I will be finding out why this happened and have the phone repaired. BG Mechanical will be coming on Friday, September 8th to replace a circulating pump and mixing valve for the hot water supply in town hall. The Public Safety Building Committee's feasibility study vendor, HKT Architects, will be here on site conducting a site visit of the police station and the fire EMS station on this Thursday, August 31st. And Randall Kemp and I had a meeting with Tracy Adamski and Dan Holmes from Ty and Bond today regarding the proposal for studying a stormwater utility to implement for the town of Southampton. Upcoming Select Board meetings, September 12th and 26th.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions? Yeah.
2 things. On letter B, where does the funding for the deductible come from?
It would come from well, if it happened to be damage here to the town hall, it would be coming from our maintenance account. In this case, it would be coming from the library maintenance account.
And they have the money to cover that?
Their maintenance budget will be challenged this year, as they have also found that they had a ventilating fan that needs to be replaced. So it'll be challenged much less than if they had to pay the entire $5,453.
Correct, but maybe we should put that on the list for the potential town meeting, the special town meeting in October, and free cash is certified.
Yeah, it's already on mine, along with one previous fiscal year bill.
On letter F, if it hasn't already been done, can we make sure that we forward Chief Anderson's report to HKT Architects? You know, I found his section of the report where he basically called out that architects are paid to make things that look nice and pretty, and that's not necessarily what the town needs. You know, at least let them be aware of what the select board has received.
Certainly.
And what we're looking for going forward.
Yep, can do that. I don't believe that's happened yet.
No, it has not. So I will send it along to the co-chairs of the Public Safety Building Committee and ask them to forward it to HKT.
Yep. That way they know what we know.
Yep, that sounds good. Okay. All right, anything else? All right. All right, let's just continue a little bit with other select board reports. Who's got anything any meetings anybody went to over the last 2 weeks from your various committees? John?
The only thing that I have is I was unable to attend the PPP meeting, so I won't be able to speak to any of that tonight. However, I did communicate to Jennifer Hibbert Day, who's the vice chair, that she should be prepared to present herself tonight to defend whatever actions and votes were taken. I know she's working till 6, so I assume she'll be on to speak when that comes up. But other than that, Finance is looking to meet, but they haven't scheduled their meeting yet.
Okay.
And Norris has not met. So that's it for me.
Okay, yeah. Stephen, anything? Nothing planned,
Nice to
open
be
space?
back in
No?
town.
Back in town, yeah, you're back in town. All right, how about you, Joy? Anything?
Sure. Conservation Commission met on the 21st. They just went through some RDs and COCs. And there was a lengthy discussion with the Fletchers in regards to issues with Zip-to Barn, but they have done a lot of work around the barn. Was a long discussion about a culvert on the property that they need to do work on. But they did spend a lot of money, time, and resources addressing issues with the actual barn where they do store hay. So I just want to thank them for that, for their time and efforts.
This is the Fletchers, right?
Yes, the Fletchers, yes. And the culvert is in regards to like that man-made ditch that is down on the Zipta property if you're walking through the fields. But that is something that they need to address. And their next meeting is September 5th for a special meeting. And their next regular meeting is September 18th. And they're still looking for volunteers and one new member. And Greenway met, but we will hear a report from them, so I won't take up any more time. And I know that Housing Authority did meet last week, but I was away. So I don't know if Dan wants to report on what happened then.
I think the only important thing to mention from Housing Authority is the establishment of Housing Trust, which Joy had mentioned in previous meetings. I think we're at the point, and Joy, correct me if I'm wrong, that the select board needs to recommend members for that committee?
So, yeah, we voted that I'm the member from the select board for the trust. That is on me. I need to do that one write-up page. As soon as my child's back in school, I will find the time to get that done. And so hopefully in September, we can start sending out that, putting out the application for people to apply for the trust.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And the other one was, last select board meeting, people mentioned about how we have a new website and we wanted committees to update that, put more time into that, and the Housing Authority has done a significant amount of work, the chair has, so thank you, Sierra, for doing that, and it looks great, so check it out.
Okay. Anything from Planning Board? Have they met recently?
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
Yeah, we did have a meeting probably since the last time we had select board, but we just went over the right of first refusal for that one property.
Which is on the agenda.
Here.
Okay.
We had no interest in it.
Okay, good. And from my point of view, Bylaws Advisory will be meeting next week, and we're going to be taking up the couple of bylaws that we had presented last meeting, I think, about membership on boards and committees and conducting business. There'll be some edits based on comments here, and when we meet on that, I think it's September 6th, if I'm not mistaken, we'll put in those edits, and then I'll bring it back probably on the September 12th meeting for a final review, and hopefully are okay, and then it would move on to KP Law for their review before it can even possibly be considered to be on a town warrant for a special town meeting. The other thing that we've heard, I guess, from the grant committee, we're going to be starting to meet again. We've heard that we do have the speed zone assembly, which are basically the sort of combination speed zone flashing lights on Pomeroy Meadow Road. There's 2 new ones and probably one on Gun Road Extension, we think.
That's my memory.
There's at least 2, if not 3, that are going to be put out. This is through DOT, a special program from DOT, and we have been awarded that, and Randall has been to some training about the installation of it, and we're hoping somewhere in the next month or 2 they might show up and get those ready to be installed, which would be great. The other thing is just a time thing, is that the application that was put in through the Public Safety Building Committee on the One-Stop Grant, we won't hear anything about that until probably October. And that was on a building request, some funds there. And we've heard nothing else on anything else. That's basically the main one that we have outstanding. No new news on the sidewalk for Norris either at this point in time. So that's it. Once we get all the various designated members from the committees for master plan, we'll be still looking for some at-large members. I believe we've got 4 at-large seats for master plan implementation committee, and so we'll be looking for volunteers to do that, but we'll probably try to organize a meeting at least of those boards or committees that have been, have delegated a person to represent them on the master plan committee. So that'll get back going. And then cost efficiencies has met, and we're starting to talk about, as I mentioned, I think the last meeting, that 2016 report that was done on the operations and structure of town government. And we're taking a look at some of those recommendations and trying to see if some of those are still relevant. And we'll be bringing forth any thoughts about that as we move along.
Remind me who the consultant was on that.
That was Community Paradigm on that one. It was done in 2016. Okay, so with that, I see Mark is here. So how about we have the Greenway Trail Committee report. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Hello, I haven't met some of you. I'm Mark Cassis, 19 Fulmer Road, member of the Greenway Committee. Aaron Tauscher, who's the chair, could not make it, so he asked me to step in and just apologized. I want to start this by saying thank the board, the community members, and the state for supporting the work that's been going on in the Greenway Committee. I think a lot of exciting work going on. I did want to confirm that everyone got the handout that Aaron...
We do, yeah.
Okay.
And you don't really need to read it, but if you
No,
want
that's
to
fine.
highlight-
I'm going to do a different sort of outline and have another piece of information to
Thanks for
distribute.
doing the
So I briefly want to just update what tasks have been completed, what is our current activities, and what we expect as important future activities. I'll try to be brief about that. So as you know, the rail corridor was acquired through state and local funding. We've had successful 2 additional grants from Mass Trails Grant for basically additional $620,000 from the state, matched to be a total of $785, which is there to pay our consultants to do the design and engineering. A lot of good work that took this board as well as other people's efforts, including CPC funding to match. We seem to have a lot of support from the state in our efforts to go forward on that. Just a reminder, this is for the multi-use trail going from Coleman Road down to Route 10 along the existing prior rail bed. The town has successfully contracted with Tie and Bond, and they've been moving forward right on target to get those things done. They have completed surveying, wetlands delineation. They've determined structural engineering review of especially the 2 bridges and also the culverts. They did not see any major problems with the bridges, which could have been a big expense. And they've also done drillings near especially the bases of the bridge to make sure there's no problems. There may be issues related to the north side of the Gun Road Bridge, and they may be sitting on sand rather than something firm, and that they are aware of it and will be addressed with the state in the Mass DOT plan. We've been assigned a project number from the state, which was important in that we had a prior project. They redid their computer system and they couldn't move forward until we went through the process again. So we now have that, and it also reinstates us being on the TIP program, which is the funding for construction. Just as an aside, the state sent something to Tie and Bond. The detail in that said probably a 2027 TIP program, so the construction money may not be available before then, is my best guess. That was just a piece of paper that was sent from the state to...
Seems to get being pushed out a year by year
I'm
by
just
year.
telling you what I saw, because it's the first time I've seen something specific after the new number was generated. Thought you needed to know about that. We've been in contact with the Friends of the Greenway. That has been resurrected under its own power. They have in the past important in terms of getting public relations out, getting support from the community, including spreading information about meetings that may be going on regarding the Greenway. And we provided them information that they've requested. They have a website up, and Friends of Greenway, I think is what it is. We've updated the town website. We had a presence with a table to celebrate Southampton, including large charts and handouts. I'll share one of those handouts. I'll share the handout with you when we're done. So the current activities, mostly the ongoing design that we're basically trying to be there when Tie and Bond needs communication with the town. To be honest, the billing stuff is going through Ed, and we're sort of communicating with Tie and Bond, relating any issues going on with the committee, town members that have specific concerns. So I've been assigned as a liaison to Tie and Bond, figuring that it makes sense to only have one person rather than have 10 people talking about different things, and that I think is working well. Ty and Bond came to our meeting just the other night, and we had talked about getting a town meeting to share information from Ty and Bond about where the project is going, and have talked about an early December meeting. We have not pinned down a date because they were looking at their schedule. The assumption is that would have to go along with open schedule at the gym at the school. The general structure, if you care to know, is probably they have printed out large maps of the entire corridor after their surveying, and to some extent would just be updating people where the stands, what they're planning to do for their timeline. But also it's a time for to have different stations, people from the community say, this is my property, I have this concern, or I'm a member and I'm worried about whether I can have this bike on, I can have an e-bike on the trail, for example. So it's a chance to ask specific questions rather than being too formal. It's sort of, there's a brief formal part, and then a lot of it's just sort of getting input from people.
Could be more like a public information session.
It's specifically a public information. This is not the formal process from the state, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Okay. This is figuring, that's a pretty far out, so we wanted to not have, get people stressed out, and we want to continue community support by having an earlier session. So, and then going along with that is we've started the process of collecting a list of specific concerns that have come up. Parking, what we're going to do with e-bikes, some of these are unsettled issues, as well as specific concerns that have come up from community members like Grindstone Mountain Farm and the Fletcher Farm and some other people. And that we'll be keeping and figuring, and with the process for sharing that with Ty and Bond, that so that when they're actually designing the plan, they have initial concerns on the board. So future plans. We, again, have this meeting for November, which I think is important to maintain interest and community support and answer concerns of people who have this ambiguous project going on and may live nearby. And just, we're ongoing work of the Ty and Bond with engineering. A lot of this is meeting specific requirements of the Mass DOT planning process, and I think I've talked about this with some people. The outline for what they need to do is 49 pages. It's incredibly detailed, and so it just takes, it's going to take at least 3 years or 2.5 years. So going along with that is we expect at least one more cycle of required grants to get additional funding to support their design efforts, just because the state process takes that 2.5 to 3 years. We expect it's going to be smaller than we needed in the past. We don't know exact number. My best guess is $250,000 with a 20% match from the town through CPC if we can get that. But I think we need to plan on that to get this completed. It's just timeline and work that needs to be done. They did not see any major blocks that would create problems. Again, there's a few things like maybe not good support under the Gun Road north side of the bridge, and they will, just work with that. The important thing is to know what you're dealing with, and it's not anything that's going to break the progress. The next big step is completion of a 25% design, which is the big step for the state DOT. It is actually probably about 60 to 70% of the actual work that has to be done, but they call it 25% design. And that is sort of the important formal stage. That is, they think will be, last I saw, submitted in February to March of 2024. And the state reviews that, a copy comes to the town for the town to review that, and then a formal meeting actually run by the state is held for Southampton residents. And that's where, in a way, abutters actually will be read their rights in a way. And so anything we hear from abutters right now, we can't promise anything. We can make sure that's been heard is collated, but that's when the formal process of saying, okay, you want this sort of fence or this is, this sort of gate, or can be done in a formal way between Ty and Bond, plan, the town, but that has to be done as a formal process, and that's my best guess. Earliest is going to be March. And that's what they're shooting for, maybe late February. I do have additional handouts, which timeline. There's 2 pages. One is this timeline we submitted with our grant. And the second page is a more detailed timeline from Ty and Bond, but it's so small, most people can't read it. And the last page is the handout we generated for Celebrate Southampton. This is what we're trying to do with communicating with the town. That includes a map in the back. That was one of the posters we had at the Celebrate Southampton. Oh, thank you. And again, any other questions?
No? Good. And it looks like you're looking for one more member of the committee, is that right?
Thank you, I didn't mean to. So right now, Dan Ruckakowski stepped down because he is worked for Time Bond and decided it would be a conflict of interest, and appropriate, I think. There has been one member who has not been attending since I started, actually, which is a year and a half at least, and we formally requested him to either come or get off the committee. I think he's committed to get off the committee, so potentially we're looking for two members, definitely one right away.
Okay.
So I definitely can spread the word.
Questions? Yeah, Dan?
First off, thank you very much for all your hard work. My question is this moving as fast as it possibly can? And if it's not moving as fast as possible can, how can we help you?
So thank you. Thank you for offering. To some extent, these are outside of Southampton's control. It took a long time to get the railroad to agree to sell the property, and that held it up for years, as you know.
Yeah.
And once we had that, we had a grant for that, and it took another 6 months to actually get things signed. Things happened pretty quickly. Mass DOT process. I was on a video meeting with Ty and Bond in the state. They had 8 to 10 different state agencies present.
Wonderful.
They're all involved with the process. It's just a slow process, whatever we want. And this Mass DOT process, they are basically holding this to the same standard as a major highway design.
So the word I heard a lot was state.
Yeah.
Right? So if there was red tape coming, it's coming from the state.
Well, they have this specific Mass DOT scope of services, 49-page outline of what they need to do, and they have a process it's going to take. It also has to go through review through like Conservation Commission because there's wetlands surrounding it. There may historical support reports to the Historical Commission. We don't expect major issues there, the natural heritage and endangered species, but that can't even start until after the 25% report.
Okay, so I guess my question is, from your perception, your opinion, is the state moving as fast as they possibly can?
No.
Okay, good. That's what I'm asking.
But let me, so, for example.
And actually it is, because we have to match Mass DOT's timelines, which is set out to us. And I'm just going to, if Mass Trails wanted to give us $500,000 instead of the 320, we could not spend that $500,000 and meet their timeline because of the way the times fall. So we'd be turning back money. Mass Trails would be mad at us and wouldn't give us another round. So we are meeting the timeline deadlines that are out there.
So let me rephrase it. The one thing that they held off, giving us that number, they could have potentially changed their schedule, given it in May, and didn't give it till just recently. But reality is Ty and Bond just moved ahead as if we had the number. So, and Ed is absolutely correct with the other pieces, is because of all these stages, there's a 25% submission, a 75%, 100%. Each of those take a while. It's a 3-year process to get the planning, a 2.5 to 3 year. Whether we could get the Mass TIP moved up a year or so, that may be a political thing.
I think it was 26 at one point.
Yeah, that's the piece that I can think of that where support from the town might do that. But
it gets back to my original question. How can we help you? And if we can put pressure on the state to help, we'll do that.
As best I can tell, the state is incredibly supportive of this project.
Yeah.
So, and they have funded us at one of the highest levels of Mass.
We just want to make sure Southampton is being treated equally or better than any other town.
I think, if I can jump in from the grant committee point of view, we know that we are the last missing, rail trail in this part of the state, let alone going from, the north all the way down to New Haven. So there's a big interest, I think, at the state level to get this done, and it just does take time. And we've certainly had support from Senator Vilas's office, Rep. Pease, and before that, Rep. Sabadosa. So we can keep on talking to our reps and state rep and senator just to keep them aware of that. So they're very aware of it. They've written letters of support. They've helped us get money. So,
So thank you. I hope that I answered that adequately, but the only thing I can think of is if there's any way to, if the plan is done, getting the actual construction started.
You've got the red phone to pick up to call the select board if the
Yep.
state is too slow,
So
and we'll help you.
one other thing I did want to say to make sure most people may have known this, but the construction money will be federal funds. There will be no substantial funds from the town, as best we've been instructed.
and
So
we
once it's
wouldn't
complete-
have an idea whether that amount would ever change. So right now, it's only around 6 or 6.5 million, right?
Well,
But
I don't know for sure, but the report that the state sent to Ty and Bond had 12 point something million. It may have been 6, but I don't want
yeah,
to quote
right.
that
But I
exactly.
mean, construction costs from
No,
when
but
that originally
It's higher,
was
and
established
they're
and now.
aware, the state's aware of that, because I
Yeah.
think they generated that number rather than Ty and Bond.
Yeah, okay. So I'm assuming that number
that's a
may
good
change
question.
as things move along, so, okay.
Any other questions?
No, I don't.
I just want to
Yeah, go ahead.
say, I commend this committee. There is a lot of pushback, I know, from the community, and I've seen a lot of committees, and I've been on a lot of boards, and I think that this committee is the most collaborative mindset that I've ever seen. I saw it firsthand when there was a citizen who came with their concerns, and you had them right up there with Ty and Bond, just looking at all the maps and really taking them seriously and not brushing them off. And I want everyone in the community who does have any concerns to feel comfortable coming and speaking to the Greenway Committee, because it really does seem like you want to hear from them and you are taking them seriously, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, we were proactive. We've sent a letter to each of the butters to let them know what's happening with Ty and Bond. We will probably send a letter before the November session, as well as general posting in the community. We want them to want this and realize that for the butters, it's a concern.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One quickie last question. Who's the chair of, or who's heading up the Friends of the Greenway?
Good. Jen Roberge? Jen Roberge.
Oh, okay.
So she has been with it forever.
Okay.
So, but yes, that's exciting too.
Thanks, Mark, for coming, and thanks to Aaron, too.
Thank you, Mark.
Appreciate all. All right, appreciate it. All right, so,
Can I bring up one other thing? I was going to bring it up to Ed, but I might as well bring something. Two of the abutters brought up issues of current concerns that people are going from the rail trail and onto their property before, at the current stage, and some of them with going in and hunting on their property. And so the issue of, should the town be doing anything about restricting access now, posting now that you can't, and I just don't, we've brought that up in the committee, and I was going to talk to Ed individually, but I decided I'm here and might as well bring it up. But I think someone brought up that the Conservation Commission, when there are safety issues, posted no trespassing. So I just, if there's thoughts on that,
yeah.
we have not
Maybe-
come to a conclusion.
Maybe an issue to keep on deliberating, because I know some of our current conservation lands do allow hunting.
Well,
Yes.
but this is people walking from the rail bed onto private property to hunt.
Right, but
I see.
as somebody who owns property that
Yeah.
abuts public property, it's my responsibility to post my boundary line.
Right.
Yeah,
So if they're posting their boundary line and people are violating that, they should be contacting the police department.
yeah.
And, okay.
Versus posting it all the way out at the entrance of the rail line.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what this
It's
discussion
individual
was.
properties, most likely, yeah.
Okay. I just, that had come up, I just want to, since it
Okay.
is a town issue.
Or
wanted to-
are you asking, because the rail trail is under a state of construction, if the town wants to put some type of do not enter signs for the public at this point in
So
time?
there were two parts of that question. Thank you for picking up on that.
Yes.
One is there a risk to the town of having people walk on the property while there's, rail things to trip on?
I would say yes.
I think the bridges are blocked off,
Yeah.
which is critical. Tripping over rail ties is less of an issue, but so there's that issue of, is the town liable for walking on that property before construction happens? The second is this issue of people going from the rail bed into private property, just trespassing, including hunting.
Yeah.
No, I'm not a lawyer,
We'd
but
have
I'd
to-
say posting signs to say that, at this point in time, this place is under construction, so it is known that you should not be entering this area, that if something were to happen to somebody, that we had at least notified them. But
I might present the countervailing position that there's been conversation among the members of the Open Space Committee that wouldn't it be nice, now that the town has legal rights in it, provided that there's not active construction, there's going to be many years of inactivity and thinking and drawing, but not construction, that it would be lovely to have the blowdowns cut away so that walkers at their own risk and liability to the town, I think, is understood non-issue. But trespass is a different thing. So there's a great deal of interest in the access to the current property.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't
concern that
know.
was also brought up, though, was there were privacy concerns.
Yeah.
Because there aren't any, trees or anything that are in certain places. So
Right.
that was a concern about public access.
And we're not in a measure right now to go and try and trim trees and make it walkable from Coleman Road on down. And people that walk through from Easthampton, some of them do start and walk down a bit onto the Southampton Rail Trail. I know they do. I've seen them, okay? But there's no way that we're going to go and maintain any of that at this point in time to stop them or not. I mean, whether we should put up a sign and say, hey, enter at your own risk, that might be one thing. But I wouldn't see us doing... Personally, I wouldn't see us doing anything more. We don't have the manpower to do that.
No, I understand. I think it's that question of should we post entered on
Okay.
the risk or something. So if
Good.
there's input on that from you folks. Thank you.
We'll let you know. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good. All right. Ed, just one quickie thing, and then we're going to jump on to new business. We have the appointment of the FRITA Advisory Board member for Southampton. Could you tell us what's happening there?
FRITA is looking for an appointment to their advisory board for the year. However, they are looking for someone that will fulfill that role for the entire fiscal year. I have filled this role for about 4 years, but I won't be here for the entire fiscal year. So,
I move we appoint the town administrator and/or whoever holds that post.
I'll second.
So the town administrator would do it right now, and upon his replacement,
Until the new-
whoever that new person is, they would take over. And in the unlikely event we have to have an interim and/or the chair of the select board has to step in, they could just cover for us.
You're saying that the chair would cover? Is that what you're saying?
If you don't get an interim.
I thought I heard him say vice chair.
Nope,
I was pretty sure.
Very clear, it's the chair.
Okay, I think I'm hearing the chair, I mean, sorry, the
Town-
town administrator will,
post.
now, well, I guess if we do it by the roll, are they going to object to the fact that you wouldn't be here for the entire fiscal year? Is that?
They may.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were asking for an individual for the year, so.
Yeah. So
We will
again,
see what they say.
I go with the position, and they can
Yeah.
refute that in writing under a lawyer's signature.
And this is basically 4 times a year?
Yeah, they have quarterly meetings.
Quarterly
so,
meetings,
Yeah, there's
okay.
4 during the year.
All right, so I think we have a motion, and did I have a second on that?
Joy.
Joy, okay.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, there we go. Okay, thank you. All right, new business. We've got a variety of things on new business, but one of which in here is talking about ARPA requests, and since I see our chair of our Board of Health here and our health director, I'm going to let you guys come on up and take on that step. And we'll go a little bit out of order on this and let you get home to your kiddo for getting ready for school as well.
I thank you, Caitlin Rooks, Chair of Board of Health. Also want to say I work at a college, so it's also a return for Smith College, so it's like double duty this week, so I appreciate you moving us up on the agenda. I know it's been a little while since we filed this report, and as you can see, the landscape of Board of Health is changing constantly. I just want to acknowledge the amount of time that has been dedicated to resolving or addressing a very few select housing inspection issues that required a large amount of time for both Charlie, our health agent, and the health director. As it's mentioned in the application, in order to make sure that we're pursuing this in a fair way to people who own multi-family dwellings, we need to move through these inspections in a strategic way that makes it so we don't burn our budget, which we're already doing because we're using a contractor to help do this work. And we actually don't know how many hours it's going to take each time we approach a property. So the amount of hours and meetings that are needed and hearings to resolve some of these issues is yet to be determined. And part of what we're trying to figure out is how we're going to manage this going forward, knowing that we have, how many multifamily dwellings?
We have, large apartment buildings, we probably have 5 or 6, but we also have to do the duplexes and triplexes, so we're behind.
So these are housing inspections that are done how frequently? Just yearly, or?
No, we'll get done. Ideally, it would be nice to be able to do them yearly. We're behind because of COVID and not able to go into these places to do the inspections safely, but realistically, probably every 2 years, and it usually happens when there's a complaint or an issue.
Mm-hmm. And we're far behind 2 years, to be fully transparent and honest. And I know that the emergency shelter is not currently happening, kind of keeping my fingers crossed, but we'll hear more about that. Another issue, the opioid settlement. So I will say that I personally spent a lot of time working on this issue, not just the opioid settlement, but also addressing substance use prevention and harm reduction education within the school communities, not just Norris, within the Hampshire Regional District, because we thought that we might be able to access some additional grant funding through Drug-Free Community by addressing substance use prevention through a regional approach. And we actually were granted additional funding through SPIFFy to do some additional data collection to support our possible application through this process. And Stephanie Foss was going to be the leader of this initiative within the whole school district, and unfortunately her position has since been eliminated, which was a really big bummer because we actually had many meetings with experts, with families, with staff in the school to try to get this off of the ground. And I will say we've had actually limited participation from our own school committee in Norris, and I kind of feel like we're starting back at square zero and trying to find the best way to address substance use. The challenge is we have many of our students who go to Hampshire Regional School, which is not in Southampton. So we felt that by bringing in our regional community and working with the few people that we have that were interested in this and trying to make a sustainable program. So through the DFC program, we could actually apply for funding to cover a staff person or a counselor or somebody that could work within our school district to have the manpower to be able to provide and coordinate that education, because it would be a 5-year grant program and you could reapply for up to 10 years. And so while the opioid settlement funds is a relatively small amount of money, some of that money could be used as almost like a seed fund. We thought about the marijuana surcharge funds kind of in the same way. And unfortunately, because I learned about the contract issue within the Hampshire Regional School District, before the end of the academic year last year, we had very limited people that were willing to take on extra work because of these contract negotiations. School's obviously getting back into session this week, and we were hoping to be able to reapproach that. But of course, without Stephanie as like the coordinator between all of the different school committees, I really feel like we're kind of having to start at the beginning. And unfortunately, I did have a conversation with Spiffy about how can we get this off the ground without people to do the work? And so I'll kind of talk about that in relation to also the Board of Health, right? So we have Charlie, who's a contractor who's doing health inspections for us. We have a huge amount of land sales, construction. I drive down the road, I see multiple septic systems dug up. I see how much work that takes to conduct those inspections and coordinate the paperwork for all of those things. Just recently, Jerry was, out of work for a couple of days. We're getting emails about contractors reaching out about how they can get their work done as quickly as possible. And unfortunately, that's the case all the time, right? In Southampton, we have population growth, we have a booming real estate market. Our inspections are not slowing down, and I really think it's important that we appropriately fund this board. The demands of the regional health departments continues to increase. I've met with the Northampton Health Department about collaboration and trying to figure out ways that we can leverage this shared public health excellence grant. They are underwater too. We are unable to access inspection services, which is something that we anticipated might happen maybe January. Doesn't seem like that's going to happen, and the reason for that is because they cannot identify inspectors. So this continues to be an issue that they're working on at the state level to try to address how we can get people to be motivated to apply or be interested in this particular field. And I think part of that is recognizing the overall work of the health department and the importance of the health department and how we are following statute and making sure that we're doing the housing inspections that we need to do and that we're being responsive in a timely manner. COVID clinics, I know that there's changes in the way that the COVID clinics are going to work in the fall, but they are anticipating that the state will continue to fund a certain amount of COVID vaccines. I'm not really quite sure what that's going to look like. So far, they've said up to 19 years old, so there might be some age limitations there. The rest of the vaccine will be privatized through like CVS, Walgreens, contracted vendors to be able to provide the vaccine. And I do anticipate that a majority of health insurances will be covering that vaccine. I believe that the Northampton Health Department is exploring whether or not they're going to continue offering vaccine clinics while billing through insurance. It's kind of yet to be determined. And I'll tell you, we're all trying to figure this out. They anticipate the vaccine is going to be released maybe between October and November. And they're already starting to make that vaccine available through private vendors. It's just there's not, like, the logistics of how that's going to be supplied through the state health department is being figured out right now. As we know, COVID wastewater numbers continue to creep up. I'm really interested to see what happens with everybody going back to school. Thinking about that a lot in my work. But there definitely are increased case rates, and it's very difficult to track because of the use of rapid antigen tests instead of PCR tests. So basically, the only cases that are being tracked outside of wastewater management are being tracked through PCR testing. Like any test that goes to the lab is what's reported to the state. So we'll see what happens in the fall. But we are looking to coordinate flu clinics for Norris School and for the community through the Northampton Health Department. Some of us have volunteered for those clinics in the past, and I'm happy to do that in the future. That's something that we're working on planning for the fall, in collaboration with Lauren, who works through the Northampton Health Department. So I guess what I'll say is we're challenged because we have one contractor who's providing services, and I understand that there's still question marks about how that's going to be funded in the spring. Just putting it out there that I don't anticipate that this need for this service is going to go away unless there's some major shift at the state level to be able to support inspection services. One of our colleagues, Bree, actually left the Easthampton Health Department to go do some education at the state level and teaching, and the problem is they still don't have people to become health inspectors. So we've had one applicant for the health agent position, and unfortunately she was not a candidate that would be able, she didn't have the appropriate credentials to be able to do the work. Although we continue to try to recruit, there are numerous open positions in several surrounding towns. So the alternative to funding the additional 3 hours is that our board would want to find ways to make the workload a little bit more manageable. I think we would have to explore whether or not we would want to close the office for a few hours once or twice a week to make it so we can get paperwork done, stay up to date, respond to current issues. It's just too hard to have people in the office, and be responsive in a way that's sustainable. The other alternative would be, maybe we'd have to impose some limitations for inspectors requesting inspection services to create longer wait times, which is really challenging because it's build season, right? So people need to be doing work. And as you can see, them holding up the bike path, it's really hard and it's really frustrating, especially when people are working on a shorter timeline. And I imagine that's going to get tighter, as winter approaches. Jerry, do you want to chat for a second?
I think you covered just about everything, unless someone has any questions, or I would invite any of the select board members to stop in and see me in my office. I'm glad to go through, exactly what's going on, but I think that it's challenging in the office because we have walk-ins, there's email, it's hard to keep up with all the email, telephone calls, and then get the paperwork done. And then I work with Charlie on, any of his inspections. The housing is a serious problem. We have one very serious problem that's probably going to go to court. It's just, we need the extra 3 hours just to even begin to get the work done. And then Ed sent out the questionnaire for the Collins Center, and that's supposed to take a half an hour. Well, it's taking much more than a half an hour. I was up till 11 o'clock last night, still didn't finish it, and others have spent 4 to 5 hours doing that. So it just keeps getting piled on. So, if we had the 3 hours, it would really, help.
What is the 3 hours? Can you explain that part?
Pardon?
The 3 hours, what does that mean?
Well, I work 32 hours right now.
Thank you.
35 hours makes it full-time. The
Okay.
board, several boards have asked to have this position, not necessarily just me, but the position, be 35 hours and full-time.
And one of the things that's happening now, just to mention the Collins thing, so the Collins study, which is one of the things we'll get to later on, there's a classification and compensation plan study that's being undergone. We're undergoing that now, whatever that grammar was, with all the town employees, and so we'll get an update on that.
Yeah.
And one of the things they're looking at is, are we, right sized? Here's the job description for position X.
Yeah.
Does it include all the duties? Do we have the right amount of hours? What's the wage scale, et cetera? So we're going through that for all the town employees right now, which
That's exactly one of my questions.
yeah,
Thanks.
so we'll have an update on that later from Ed, but, so that's something I think within the next 2 months we should have an answer on, hopefully. And we should have at least enough preliminary answers to know where we're going with some of that information. So that's one question too, because I think that's the challenge. Since we're really in the middle of this, do we do something with this now, or do we wait until we get this study to say, okay, this is where we're going? Because I think, unlike the other departments, you're not on a salary basis, right? You're on an hourly basis, whereas all other department heads, all other department heads are on a salary basis. So that's a question I think that we would end up finding out more about when we get this result. Is like, should we get off this hourly thing and go to a salary basis, and what does that entail? So
I believe I was told that position had to, because of, and Ed, maybe you can correct me, but I think you said that based upon a previous information you've been provided by somebody, that you were told that it had to be hourly, because we were hoping to make it a salaried position.
It does not have to be hourly. The boards of health are all, by statute, the hiring authorities. And they're agents of the state, not the town.
Yeah.
So they have total authority on what they do with their agents and any of their assistants. We had a study that was done, probably back in 2016 or 17, the Don Jacobs study. And at that time, the board had approved my job description, but if you read the job description, it definitely needs 35 hours.
Well, that's what we're trying to update now, and that's why that questionnaire is so important, because I think, not only is the questionnaire, I'm hoping people are not spending 5 and 6 hours on it, because the meeting that I did listen into was that, do your best to fill in the questionnaire, but the rest of it's going to be interviews with the folks from Collins to understand all the gaps that maybe you didn't fill out. So don't, for anybody who's out there that's working on their questionnaire, don't stress over it too much, because you'll have another opportunity to work directly with Collins and talk about it. So.
And when do you anticipate that that will be finalized?
People are filling out their questionnaires and sending them in now, and I think we were hoping that in a couple months we will have something from them in terms of what does it mean, because they've been kind of analyzing certain things about the town and then trying to figure out how things fit. But John, you had a question?
Yeah, I just want to clarify some comments that you made. So one of the comments that struck me as chair of the Norris School Committee, you said Norris School Committee has been unresponsive. So as chair, I can testify right now that I have received 0 requests. So are you sure it's Norris and not Hampshire Regional School Committee? Just to be clear for people listening at home.
I believe that I can check my email, but I think we emailed like individual people on and then as well as Eliza too.
Okay, so I'll follow up on that tomorrow. And then for the record, I just want to clarify that a former employee was named, Stephanie Foss, who is not a member of collective bargaining, who is not a member of the contract, chose not to reapply for her position, and that she's no longer with the district.
Thank you for clarifying that. I will, regardless, she was still the
Correct. She was a lead person on this, but
and I understand thank you for correcting the.
On that. I personally, whether this is, I don't like piecemeal. This is my opinion now. I don't like piecemeal. I don't like one individual department over another. I wasn't too thrilled about the whole finance team trying to get Friday hours, and then, well, they're on salary, so does that really apply, and are they here or not? I stand behind the Collins. I push for the Collins report. I want the Collins report. And whether or not we approve ARPA for this 3 hours, if this 3 hours is needed, we're just delaying this argument for 52 weeks. Mm-hmm. Because come the next budget cycle, we're going to sit here and say, well, that was ARPA money. This is basic. So should we be at 32 or should we be at 35?
Mm-hmm. So Todd, why not just simply use some of the ARPA money temporarily until you get the
Because we don't know. Because there really isn't any ARPA money left until the reimbursements come in. And if I had to pick and choose right now today, the $5,000 that you're asking, $4,999 that you're asking for, I would rather allocate that to the contract position if the funding's really going to run out in the spring, because you used $20,000 last year, we gave you $20,000 for this year, but I heard that's possibly not going to make it. And I'm sitting here as a select board member, I'm okay if we slow down construction in this town, because we've outgrown our resources. So if it takes 2 years instead of 1 year to build a house, so be it. Because we're slowing down our population, because we can't afford what we're doing right now. We can no longer have a 911 dispatch center in this town. Our police department's going dark 16 hours a day. We cannot provide ambulance service to the town. We cannot provide adequate health. It's just, there's a whole myriad things to do. So I'm more of the opinion, and I'm not saying that right now I'm against this, but just my mind is going, I want to right-size the entire ship together instead of piecemealing this whole thing. And to me, using ARPA funds is a Band-Aid. And I'm not saying you shouldn't get the hours. I'm just saying I'm not sure if ARPA is the funding source.
It's kind of a shame that the previous study that was done was never implemented, and the town had gotten a grant to go ahead and do that.
I think pieces of it had been implemented. I mean, there were things that we had.
You're referring to the
as
2016?
guidelines, the Jacobs study.
Yeah, I think that,
Yeah. So I guess one thing I'm looking at, so I'm hearing you, but at the same time, so the emergency shelter or transitional housing, whatever we were calling it for the immigration thing, is off the table as far as I know. So in terms of one of the arguments, that doesn't fall in here.
I think you'll find if you go to meet with Nina that's.
Well, I can't imagine it would still be at Harley, so I don't know where else they would figure that out. But we'll keep an eye on it if it reappears. But
I know Dan has his hand up, but just one more. But aren't you currently doing the 35 hours without the funding, and you have another funding source that you're temporarily using?
I could use it. It's the interest money from the septic betterment program, but we haven't borrowed the money for that program either, and I don't, I can use that money to loan if somebody, has a failed system. So I don't want to use it up. There's very little left there, and that, you try and do the best you can.
well, just looking at the latest expense report we have, it's about $188, right, for the extra 3 hours? And that has been charged the last.
188 per
Pay period?
Per payroll.
Per payroll, that's what I meant, per payroll.
It's about 90
Right.
something.
So the last couple payrolls, however, it's been charged to that septic betterment interest program.
Correct, because I was working on the septic betterment program with doing the
Okay.
registry work and
Okay.
dealing with contractors.
Okay. And Dan, you had a question, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to go back to the fundamentals. I always think that a committee or a board, while they are providing services, the services they provide should fund that effort. Have we done the calculations to show that the money we charge for those inspection fees cover the?
We just did that recently, about
Okay.
2 years ago.
Great.
And I think that we probably
Closer to the mic if you
would be remiss, increasing them again.
And a lot of the inspections that we're doing are not inspections that can be charged for if there's a complaint or, right?
Those are the things that are pushing us over the edge. It's not our routine inspections. It's the I guess,
It's the response to public health issues.
issues.
But,
Okay.
but just to, Dan, I believe, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, currently, you do not have a revolving account. So those fees that are collected get turned over at the end of the year under miscellaneous department receipts into the general fund, unlike burn permits per se.
Yeah,
That-
the fire
right, So
department.
that's a distinction,
There is no revolving fund, yeah.
So,
which there could be.
We used to, a number of years ago, have a revolving fund, and then one of the selectmen.
Right, so that's a particular interest for, that I'll bring up again at budget season.
Yeah, I
This
think-
outside contractor that we're using, 80%, 85, pick a number, percentage of the work they're doing is generated off those fees, and those fees should be covering that expense. And again, the ARPA money's going to run out.
It will run out, yep.
yeah, we shouldn't be using ARPA money for our daily budget.
Which I would argue is different than the department head being 35 hours versus 32. That's a general fund
Yeah. I was just,
issue.
that question about if we had looked into our base money coming in and how it's covering the function which is performed was for my understanding of if that group by itself is self-sufficient. It sounds like it isn't, it isn't because of the handling the public health and safety issues that when they arise, right? That's the overage that occurs, right?
We have partially, but we also have responsibilities, statutory responsibilities that we're not able to charge for items. I mean, if we go to do these housing inspections, we're obligated to do them.
Yeah, to me, it's like everything else. When you bill somebody, you bill them for your costs as well as your maintenance and overhead of your business. So those costs for all our other expenses related to the budget, to the building or housing, sorry, the health authority should be included in those costs. So I think when
But
we
I
get
think
talked about
what Jerry's saying is when
costing-
there are mandatory inspections of apartment buildings, et cetera, that need to be done on a regular cycle, which that's part of the job of the Board of Health Director. The homeowner doesn't pay anything to get their place inspected. Okay, there's no money coming in there. It's only when there's a serious violation of health codes that we've got maybe some possible recourse, but then we may end up putting out legal expenses too. So it's not all that clear. But Ed, you had a hand up, sorry.
I just wanted to let the select board know that the current balance in that WPAT interest account is $52,392.03.
Really?
Now, regardless of that, is if you're going to use it, should that just be even though we're talking about 3 hours every week, if the health director happens to be working 3 hours that week on it, can it be used? Yes. If she's working 0 hours a week and working on other things that week, do you want to use it? That's a totally different question, but that is the current balance in that account.
Well, according to the Clean Water Trust, you're allowed to use that money for administrative referral.
Yeah.
Yes.
So to clarify, because I raised this point when we voted to approve the continuation or the new resolution to allow the funding, is any interest on that account earned once that interest is earned and placed in that account, is outside the jurisdiction of the select board and within the jurisdiction of the Board of Health elected officials. So as long as the board approves the spending of the money, correct? It has to be,
But
it's very loosely written.
And to take it the next step?
Yeah.
Yes, however, if you took that to the next step and said, any interest on that interest account, that doesn't stay, that gets transferred to the general fund at the end.
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify that one.
Right, and as soon as our reconciliations are up to date, we'll know what that number is that needs to be transferred.
Exactly, but it's still,
Yes.
the interest on it wasn't that much, just still in the neighborhood of 52,000.
so, because
Of
that program has
accumulated
been.
interest. Accumulated interest, roughly 52,000.
Just
right
what
now.
was paid back to us in interest.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And so that, but can that, I'm hearing administrative, but I just want to be clear. So if the director was not working on a septic betterment issue, is it legit to use those funds to cover the 3 hours?
Yes, because you're still administering
The program.
And I might not be using all, definitively 3 hours, but I'm still either doing.
They could be collecting used needles, and they could use that money to pay for that. They could, so it's administrative support within the office. It's very
So
loosely
It's not narrowed to
written.
the WPAT program?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, the Board of Health could say on any particular year it's an administrative function of that account, and we're going to allow up to $5,000 or whatever, just in general administration, be taken from it.
Which,
The Board of Health, yeah.
which again, I go back to, I would rather the Board of Health take that vote to do that and forward that off to the town accountant for the funding source, than to utilize the ARPA funds, which I'm hearing we're going to need to come up with some creative resource for our
Health agent.
health agent.
And I 100% agree with you that it really is hard to continue piecemealing things together. Our entire department is trying to prevent things from becoming piecemealed, and it is a challenge, and it's unfortunate for people who need our services.
I would suggest that as chair of the Board of Health, you put forward a PCF or PRF, whatever it is, to change that job from 32 to 35 and identify the 3 hours of funding source of that account for the remainder of this fiscal year. So
Okay, and would that be,
General fund.
and what would that, and that could come from the general fund? I just want to
32 is already
understand.
budgeted in your general fund.
Who's already budgeted
Yeah, right.
from that?
Your 3, it's kind of like the Council on Aging. Council on Aging gets so much from the general fund, the rest comes from the state grants. Collectively, and once that form goes through the whole process, then the payroll gets approved through the whole process. We still run into a problem come the next budget cycle.
I was going to say, because the position, was requested to be increased to 35 hours, and I kind of took the,
But at $5,000 a year, $52,000, you've got 10 years to run before you run out of money.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to set a limit to it, I think, for, the number of hours and the hourly rate at this point in time, until we figure out whether this is going to be a salaried position or not.
and I would love to see if there's any documentation, because we have been informed previously that it did need to be an hourly position based upon the job classification. So, of course, it would be easier if it was salaried. Of course, it would be easier if it was 35 hours, but we want to make sure that we're not.
It's not the job classification,
It's not
it's
that.
the duties that
The duties of the job.
the individual is performing that actually puts it into an exempt or non-exempt
I had a
category.
question, please.
Right, so it sounds like we have an intermediate plan, and in the meantime, we're having research done by the Collins Institute, which will tell us, give us a better estimate of what we need for staffing. And when we have that information, then we can say, we, as a town, this is what we need for this department, because we have this data to back it up. And then you bake that into our budget.
And I have one other question about that process. Is that going to factor in the needs of the town for the health agent as well? Like, I understand we're doing, so that's the other thing I'm thinking about is it would be really helpful for us to know exactly what we need for health agent hours, because we know that that position doesn't exist. Like, there's not a person to fill that position, but there's still those job duties that we are obligated to provide that person needs to be doing, that we're currently funding through through a contractor, which is,
Yeah, so I think that position is within, the health agent is within the Collins Institute current list of things to review, correct? I mean, is the health inspector?
Technically, boards of health are unique in Massachusetts, and they and their assistants don't come under a compensation and a classification plan
Right.
unless the municipality has a charter.
Right, but didn't we challenge Collins to take this position?
Yes.
And come back to us with a job description?
Yeah.
And list of duties?
health
which-
agent.
Which you, as the chair, would have to sign off and say, yes, this is accurate, and then with a comparable wage, step one.
Based on
Now, it's whether or not we can
surrounding communities.
afford to do that is then the next story, but I think it gives us a starting point.
I mean, I think,
great.
I think it was good for me to go through and fill out the questionnaire again. We don't have an employee who is the health agent, but I can fill that out. Do we really have to have it in Thursday? Can I have till Monday?
All I'm going to say is this, is every step of the way, as these things are delayed, the end result.
I just can't get it done.
well, I mean, and maybe there's anything that they can talk about orally, I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
they can't read all of them at the same time. It's
Yeah.
like, sending your check into the IRS.
Well, something's off if
I
we
mean,
think
somewhere
it
there
takes
was,
half an hour.
somewhere there was a job description for Nicole, was there
Not
not?
a half an hour.
we reposted, that position's currently posted.
Yeah.
So we have a job description, but I don't know if it speaks to every question in the survey. I didn't read the survey.
Yeah, so that might be one thing. And just, now, do you guys, just one other point, so I guess what we're saying, if I'm hearing this, is that there would be preference to, if you can legally use the WPAT interest account, that would be something that the Board of Health would have to take action on but go through the PRF process, that was what you were saying?
Yeah, well, yeah, because you'd have to permanently modify, at least for the remainder of this year, the funding source, which then would make it,
Technically,
So,
we'll do that, but I just want you to understand that we don't come under.
I know, but.
But if you wanna get the money-
In the matter of doing.
I'll do any,
When it gets to the treasurer's office, the treasurer's going to say.
We can have it in the
doesn't
right
have-
accounts.
I know.
It's
but
gotta
I'm
be in the right
just
accounts.
letting-
In the spirit of cooperation.
yeah.
We've always done it.
Yeah, in the right accounts. But I think you need to take a look and say, and whether you want to authorize that for a 2-month period, 3-month period, or until December, whatever, until we get this Collins thing back, that could be one way to do it. So you're not necessarily committing for the whole year, just take it a small bite at a time. That would be one way to do it, but I don't know.
But even if we get the Collins information back in, say, a couple of months, there's still only so much money for the health department.
Correct.
Until.
True, but I will point
I
out.
don't know what's going to happen. You're saying you're having a town meeting in October?
That is my personal
Haven't decided.
direction. Now, whether we can actually achieve that is a different story, because we have to return $480,000 to the Operational Stabilization Fund that we borrowed to fund the schools, because the other 4 communities didn't pass it. However, I do believe that our free cash certification is probably going to be the highest in one of the years that we've ever had.
So in October, possibly.
October, November, yeah.
Possibly.
Sorry.
Could fund this.
Most likely, we've got to do something before the end of this calendar year. I would bet we have to have a special town meeting because there's various other issues that are
Right.
arising. And I would just like to point out one thing, and I think you guys, I'm assuming, do you recall whether you had any funds encumbered for 23? You turned in all the receipts, all the expenses that you thought you had?
Everything for ARPA. We finished-
Not for ARPA, I'm talking the town budget.
No, we had nothing encumbered.
Okay, so what I'm seeing here, guys, I mean, and I think I would just advise you guys to pay closer attention to your budget then, unless this is wrong. But the last report we have for 23 then shows Board of Health expenses, you've got about $980,000, hardly, $980 left there. And then we had, I guess, from the health agent wages, $1,500 and some there. So we didn't borrow all of that? We didn't use all of that to pay Charlie?
Bradley hasn't rolled stuff.
This is the end of September, as far as I know. I mean, sorry, end of June's report, but we'll check that. But I mean, just to say that, I mean, just keep track of your budget too in terms of those expenses. But Sharp's program is spent, but there was some, looks like there was some left, about $980 left in Board of Health expenses, unless
Is that wages or expenses?
No, this Board of Health expense line.
Oh.
Which is what, $3,000 to start
That's
with?
not changed, that's
So-
$3,000 since
Right.
2013.
Right, so it looks like 67% was spent. So anyway, just something to check on.
But I
Yeah.
think that gets rolled forward.
Yeah.
Bradley.
Well, this will,
No, I wouldn't
no.
roll forward.
If, no,
No.
no.
I thought Vicki used to roll it.
No, this goes, if it wasn't encumbered and put aside because you were expecting another expense coming in, correct me if I'm wrong.
Related to the calendar year.
It's gone.
It's closed out.
It's in.
Well, no
it'll
more
go back
printer
to-
paper for
It'll go back
Jerry.
to free cash, okay?
Okay.
Stephen, question?
I
Comment.
think we're reviewing an ARPA fund request.
We are.
And it seems to me the sense of the board is to send the applicant back, hearing your concerns, to put together a more comprehensive and long-term plan for funding this position.
Rather than ARPA.
Right. I mean, it's evident that.
And use the WPTA funds.
Yes.
Right, that there's, no comment about future funding in your application.
We're allowed to use those funds, and the board will go ahead and vote to do the PCF. And
I'll get the contractors.
So would someone like to make a motion that we do not act, sorry, Dan, you had one more thing, sorry.
Yeah, one thing that was mentioned was that the idea of regionalization, and I think, as we are looking at the same for our dispatch center, this seems like another opportunity for involving our state government for the regionalization of health affairs. It's something that you mentioned. So that
not working right now.
We were part of this Public Health Excellence Grant Program, and the Northampton Health Department is the administrator for this program and supporting a number of communities, and is experiencing their own staffing issues that I think challenges their ability to provide the level of services needed between all of the communities in a way that's actually sustainable. So there's no, they might come out and do a talk at the Council on Aging every once in a while or do a vaccine clinic, but beyond that, we really haven't been able to access services through that.
I asked the bike trail, gentlemen, we're here to help you. How can we help you in terms of what services the state said they would provide through this that they're not?
The state has not provided any funding. Massachusetts does not fund local public health. There was legislation, hopefully we thought it might be signed. It was not.
So what was this agreement with Northampton?
Northampton?
Yeah.
We were supposed to get inspectional services. They were hoping to be able to hire 2 inspectors. However, this was for 14 towns. And if you're one of the smaller communities, you know where you fall on the list? Close to the bottom. So, and they couldn't find anyone.
Okay, so
Big
that
issue
sounds
with
like a
recruiting and
failure.
So, yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay,
right now because we don't have enough qualified. We don't have a generation that wants to work in public.
Who wants to work for $25 an hour with a bachelor's degree or like a professional contracting license?
Okay, thank you. I wanted to understand that.
Yeah,
I'll make a motion that we take no action on this as it's understood, as it is our belief that there is an alternative source of funding available to the Board of Health. And should that prove unsuccessful, which I don't think it will, we could take this back up. But at this point, just lay it on the table.
okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any further questions, comments? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll follow up with you, John, about the process to request to have the position
The
changed to
next meeting,
$35.
the next meeting's on the 21st, the regular one, so if we just have the request by the 18th of September. In the meantime, I think it could continue to happen as it has been, as needed.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Ed, we've got one more. ARPA, do you want to take that up right now or jump into the regular? It's basically yours with the financial software question. Want to give us just an update on where we are there? I think we're almost ready, but not totally yet.
We are, you can do it here, you can do it under the,
We're on ARPA requests right now.
Yeah, let's just do it now. While we've got these are the main. These are the only 2 that we have. We don't have any other updated information from a couple of others that were hanging out there, I think.
Yeah, so we're at a point where we're very close, and I will look at it as Path A and Path B. So to get to Path B, which will be the final software vendor recommendation, I'd like to get through Path A. And Path A is the select board amendable to changing over to utilizing a third-party payroll and HR vendor. And I say that because if you are, okay, we've got two finalist vendors that we can work with either one. If you say no, it's going to just lock us into one of those vendors.
How much, Madam Chair, how much time do you think you need, Town Administrator, to get through this process? Assume we say we're open to a third party.
To the next meeting.
So a 2-week extension.
So the third party would be the Harper's payroll.
I mean, it doesn't have to be Harper's. It can be someone else. However, I will say, Jen and I did have a very good virtual meeting with Harper's. It was very informational last week, and you all know how I like to control things. And I'm much more comfortable, as you have heard in the past, with saying, okay, I'd be happier if we had a financial software vendor that it was our choice whether we used a third-party vendor or not. That's the case with one of these, it's not with the other. However, after going through that 45-minute meeting, I was very impressed by what Harper's has to offer. They've been doing this for a long period of time. They have worked with both of these financial software vendors, Vadar and Springbrook. They've implemented with both of them. I think they can actually, even though it's a third-party vendor, with the experience that they have, that it would be, from what we see, it would be seamless. I will say that actually after listening to that particular presentation, it would actually be my recommendation to the select board to change over to a third-party payroll HR vendor. One caveat as we look forward to actually changing our financial software, which we would probably implement and change over as of the beginning of the fiscal year, which would be July 1st, because W-2s are done on a calendar year basis. I would strongly suggest to the select board that if we are going to go to a third-party payroll vendor, that we implement that software change for January 1st, 2024.
That would make some sense. So just to be clear, what Harper's can offer us as an outsourced payroll vendor, they're going to do all the W-2s, all of those kinds of things, and then there's this mention of this, I think we've talked about it before, the employee self-service. That's where employees can get online, right, and sort of check out whatever they've got for their leave earnings and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for those individuals that don't get a physical check, they can go online, they can see the, copy of their, shall we say, virtual check that got direct deposited. They could actually make, it would still have to be finally approved by someone in the treasurer collector's office, but they can, make changes to their withholding,
It's a self-service portal.
It's a self-service portal, absolutely.
Very modern.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Other than the fact that it's not all in one package, which I love, to me, it's another step in a direction that could actually offer more services to the town and to its employees than we currently have.
Okay.
If I may?
Yeah, Steve, sure.
There's a good analysis of the financial accounting software and trade-offs, and you've noted that one requires an HR and payroll third party. Is Vadar the only, is Harper's the only plug and play? We didn't set out to interview and select a payroll firm. Sounds like they're good, but that wasn't the search criteria.
No, however, there are others out there. However, I will say that for one of these particular vendors, Vadar, they are, shall we say, the preferred partner. So if we happen to go forward and choose Vadar, I would strongly say, yes, we should utilize Harper's. If we went to the other company, we could use Harper's or anyone else that's out there.
I'm a huge advocate for outsourcing payroll. It's a huge liability. 1 decimal point off on the 941 filing, or one paycheck that goes out in a municipality with Social Security withholdings triggers a whole catastrophe of events that takes years to unwind, and I've gone through it with Holyoke. We need to get out of the business of payroll. That's not our area of expertise, and shift that liability and minimize the town's exposure to that. Now, one vendor, it comes as a package with them. The other vendor has to be a third party, which is what's bringing this up. If we want to keep both vendors on the table, then I'm comfortable giving a 2-week extension. I just would want to put this to bed because a payroll conversion for January 1st, which I agree with 100%, at a minimum is 4 weeks for transfer. And that's if you have a crackerjack staff ready to handle every single issue.
4 months, you mean?
4 weeks.
4 weeks,
for payroll conversion.
Okay.
But our staff is overwhelmed and overworked to start with, so I'd put 6 weeks on that, and then we got Thanksgiving and we got Christmas in there. So I would say whatever we're going to do, if we're going to outsource payroll, we owe it to the departments that are going to have to deal with this to have a decision well before November 1st, so that they have a full 8 weeks or even longer to transition, and they're not under the gun during the holiday season.
Well, it seems like this, as you said, this is sort of, a step toward the final decision of which company. So, I mean,
I just
the
don't want
idea
to go for 4 or 6 weeks.
Do we want to outsource or do we run it, control it ourselves? So I think that's really still the question, which,
Outsource.
I think there's a lot of argument. And the price here is not bad, frankly. This is $11,000.
I'm very in favor of
Are we looking for a motion to outsource? Is that what we're?
with other organizations, and
Let's do it.
I'm very comfortable.
Outsourcing?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion
Let's have a motion,
to continue this discussion for 2 weeks to allow the town administrator to determine whether or not a third party is the appropriate course for us, but within 2 weeks to have a final recommendation before the select board.
Second.
And outsourcing is on the table.
Second.
All right. So just a question. So you're not looking for a recommendation that you want us to say outsourcing is okay with us tonight?
I actually was
Just did.
for that.
Oh, you were?
You didn't actually, the way that
Yeah,
was.
let's just get it
The
done.
motion is to allow a 2-week extension. Outsourcing is on the table.
Okay, I didn't
And
know
for the town administrator to give us a recommendation in 2 weeks, which could include outsourcing.
For the final,
Yep, we want.
For the final
I want to vote in
vendor.
2 weeks. And outsourcing is on the table.
Is on the table.
Yes,
It's on the table.
Right.
yes.
Okay, so I understand the motion now, so yes.
all right.
You would not be able to come back in 2 weeks and say outsourcing is off the table,
Right.
which would
No.
mess everything up.
It's on the
Right.
table.
On the
Gotcha.
table.
Okay, okay, I have a motion. Could I have a second?
Second.
Joy, second? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
fine, okay. Okay, let's keep on moving here, guys. Another new business item, I guess. First of all, we have no other ARPA money, no other ARPA decisions to make tonight. We don't have any updated information from the 1 or 2 other ones that we had on the list, the quilt shop in particular. Depending on some of our discussions tonight, we may be finding another need for another ARPA application or 2 for some extra money of things that we're talking about tonight too, and then we'll have to figure that out, as John said, as some reflows come back into ARPA from a couple of places where the money we allocated maybe was over what we've ended up being able to contract with. So we may have a few savings. I know we do in a couple cases. So I'll try and see if I can work with Bradley and nail down some of those figures too before we have another real ARPA discussion to understand that. All right, so new business. For right of first refusal, Brickyard Road, 3.6 acres. And I'm understanding that we have Board of Assessors has said okay on this, and Planning Board has said okay on this, and I don't know if Concom has?
Yes, all three have voted to waive the right of first refusal.
Okay. All right. So we have, yeah, and this would be, I'm sorry.
You got a couple hands to your right.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Yep, just to say, so there's background information in here. Owner of record is basically O'Connor Land and Timber, Brickyard Road, being bought by Ryan Geeler Enterprises. Yeah, John?
Stephen threw his hand up first.
Stephen? Yeah.
I've only been exposed to this community's consideration of right of first refusal in one prior case. And I'm very concerned that we don't have a more robust process for getting input on each proposed withdrawal, beginning with an evaluation by one or more professionals, and that would include town council, to advise whether the notice meets all the requirements of state law, which are increasingly numerous and complex to be a bona fide offer. I have no reason to question this one. Many of these are run-of-the-mill, and the town is well advised to waive its rights and to collect whatever back taxes are due under the program. But I think both our taxpayers who we encourage to enroll in the tax abatement program and save themselves some money because they're actively engaged in agriculture or forestry or keeping their land open, if we're going to encourage them, there must be a very clear and predictable process at the end of the road when they withdraw. And I've not found the process to be clear or robust.
Is that not, what do I say, regulated, if you will, by the statutes in Chapter 61? I mean...
Yeah, and I'm not sure that they are comprehensive evaluated. What we do is ensure that each of the statutorily required boards gets their notice.
Right.
And that we comply, I presume, with the 120-day clock.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
But getting those boards really, the question is really a broader public input, because those boards, especially in summertime, are going to say, looks good to me. But who's not on the list?
Hey, I don't know if we're just going to say that.
The Housing Authority is not on the list. The Open Space Committee is not on the list. The Board of Health is not on the list.
Yeah, I agree with Stephen's take here, because this particular one, and again, if I'm just looking at the documents, and this is the example that's before us, I see a date stamp. Of July 31st, 2023. I don't know that is a date stamp of the town clerk, or I don't know who it is, because it's just a stamp with a date. The town clerk, there's no signature, there's nothing there. I'm assuming on face value, that's the date stamp of when it was received by the town, and here we are on August 29th, a full 30 days later, and this is the first notification of the select board. Now, I was copied, we were all copied on an email from Conservation saying they waived their right of first refusal of the property. I inquired of the town clerk, which property are we talking about? And what the town clerk sent me was an NDA to subdivision of a property. And it wasn't even this property, and the town clerk told me this is what I had on file. So to Stephen's point, is I think there needs to be a process, when this is received, I'm going under the assumption this came into the town clerk. If it went into another department, whatever town it went, whoever put that date stamp on it, what is the process by statute? Who gets notified? Where does it start? What's the time clock? And shouldn't, at the very least, the individual departments, select board, planning, who's the other one?
Open space,
Thank
housing
you.
authority.
Open
Board of
space.
Health.
Well, but housing doesn't currently get it right now.
No,
The ones that currently get
assessors.
it. Assessors.
Planning.
Yes.
Yeah. Shouldn't they all get the package at the same time?
I think they do. I think they do. I think what I've seen in the past
Did we get
is
this
that,
one?
Well, what I've seen in the past is the person who's wanting to take it out of chapter, they send it to all those 4 entities at once, and then whenever those people meet is when they actually
Right.
see
So has
the
open
thing.
space-
And usually we've waited until.
And I don't want to cut Ed off, but,
Yeah.
but the process should
Sure
be,
you do.
it needs to be received by who? Whether it's the town administrator or the town clerk, whoever it is, the statute has to, and then they're responsible, so we can ensure and we can trace back the paper.
Yeah.
The burden shouldn't be on the property owner to know what our process
No,
is.
they know who to, they know the 4 entities to notify, who they send it to, and I don't know whether it's
Yeah.
the town
Well-
administrator's office, Ed?
Most of them do. Some of them mess it up, but yeah, it is either by certified mail or personal delivery to the 4 boards, select board, and that's whose date stamp is on that, because that is our copy, assessors, conservation, and planning.
Okay, so so the July 31st, whatever the meeting right after July 31st was this in our packet as a communication that came in?
No.
Because the one thing on this is, it has a hard, fast 120-day window.
It has been the select board's practice that they do not take action until all the other
all the
boards
other
have
boards.
taken
I'm not
action.
suggesting we take action. I'm suggesting we get notification.
Notification.
And again, it's just about cleaning up the process. So if there was, and again.
And did you not get an email from me about 2 weeks ago on this? The select board?
I get a lot of emails from you,
I
Ed.
don't-
Yeah, with this in it.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
We might have.
So, Mike, look, if I could expand, my point is not that we might be in non-compliance with the law. I'm not asserting that at all. Nor that the request before us ought not to be acted on tonight and favorably, consistent with all of our other boards. I really would like to put all of us on firmer foundation for the next one that comes in. Because, well, I'm not going to editorialize. I have gone out and found a town that has an excellent model. They are no bigger than we are, heavily agricultural, with a lot of chapter lands at risk. And they have both a local and a regional land trust. We at least have a very, very strong regional land trust. So they're partners for that other piece, which is by assignment. If there are real conservation interests, it's not only the town that could exercise the right first refusal, or technically it does exercise and then assigns for the nonprofit conservation partner to follow through.
Yeah.
It's complex,
Yeah.
no doubt. The Town of Stowe guidance available on their website is 5 pages long, and it first recites statute and what its provisions are, and then why it's in the public interest to have this type of input, which has to be expedited. It demands a lot of a lot of people.
And how does that get approved? Because the Chapter 61 provisions indicate the 4 entities that should receive it, or if you've got forestry land, it's also got to be the state forester, right?
Right.
So those are the ones that are required to receive it. So if you wanted to suggest an amended process, as another town may have done, and add other committees that might have interest, I mean, we're hearing parks saying, hey, look, we need more room for, ball fields. Oh, Lord, play ball.
We got this.
Play ball.
That would fall under why I would not vote on this until Open Space has reviewed it, because they have a parks person on their open space.
Yeah. So Parks will go
That's
through
why
open
I
space too.
don't like vote, I know conservation because of the Wetlands Act and everything, but I don't like voting on these until Open Space has
But they don't
reviewed it.
have a technical role to play, though. I mean,
Right,
they're not-
but-
No, it's just it's
Yeah, it's an informal role. Okay, hold on, one at a time. It's an informal role right now,
Yeah.
that maybe it's been done as a courtesy in the past, but I will guarantee you it has not been routinely done to give them a voice.
Right. So if, going forward, we set a policy with timelines and expectations of when this is received, if it, received by in the town administrator's office by certified mail, that starts the clock. And then it just, whether it goes on the next agenda, because then the select board can say, okay, we've got 120 days. We've been told more or less at worst, we're 2 weeks into this, unless there's a holiday, right? So now we've got 106 days left. All these communities, you've got 30 days to take this up and report back to us, because we have to act within the 120-day window.
Correct.
So it's more of a, I guess, more of a transparency thing, but to still honor and live within the 120-day window to solicit feedback. And then I have more questions after that. But
So would this be a select board policy? Is that what you're saying? I mean, can we?
I mean, I know that Stephen was referring to the issue with the right of first refusal came up because of open space reviewing it, and they were having an issue with it. So I know it does go to open space. It had been in the past going to open space. So if we want to make it a formal policy, let's make it a formal policy.
It definitely hasn't been a normal.
making it a, I mean,
Ken.
we know our current town administrator is a short-termer. I think he still has both feet in the game, like other recent retirees.
Yeah, you can't start calling me one you
But
like that.
making it a formal select board policy of this is how we're going to handle these requests does two things. One, puts all current chapter owners on notice that this is the process going forward, regardless of what happened in the past.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that this should be where we start ground zero. Maybe it's the next one that comes up. But two, also puts in black and white for all the citizens and all the committees, this is our transparency process and how we're going to operate.
If we can do something beyond what is required through,
You can't.
Chapter 61,
You can,
then.
you can through policy, and you don't necessarily have to make it
Yep.
known to the landowners, because this would be the way I recommend doing it. The statute's a statute.
Right.
It says you have to notify by certain means these four boards. I wouldn't change that.
Right.
But what is in your
Once you're notified.
bailiwick or under your control is you can turn around, because the select board is one of those four. You can say, okay, when these come in,
We want advice from.
The following happens.
whether it happens to be the administrative assistant or the town administrator, as soon as it comes in and is date stamped, that in addition to those that were notified under statute, by the landowner, that administrative assistant or town administrator is to immediately send that to Board A, B, and C in addition, and notify them that, for your information, we have received this. You have 30 days to act upon it. And if you don't want to advise that to waive the right of first refusal, please tell us what you think would be
So
your particular
We're looking for advice
need
from
or need.
other
Feedback.
committees.
Yeah.
Feedback from other committees. I have no problem with that. I would like to suggest, and Stephen, you've researched this, and you found this, I would like to
I've gone
suggest,
that far.
I would like to suggest that you take a stab at drafting a policy for select board.
Sure.
on this.
I will consult you for a local flair.
Okay. And Dan? yeah.
I agree. I wanted to add one note back to Joy's point about open space.
Right.
In that open space really has, maybe it's, I don't know if it's in their charge or not, but they take care of parks, they take care of requests from the other committees in town that may have interest in land, in open space, right?
Well,
So-
I would say that they are the ones with the long-range acquisition strategy as opposed to the day-to-day operations and management. And in that regard, should have sensitivity to the varied needs for land for the community going forward.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
that's fine.
and let me throw one other caveat out here, just so you can put it into the, one of the issues with these is usually the funding method for these is go to CPC.
Yeah.
Right.
That requires a conservation restriction. That in particular puts certain constraints on this. For example, Housing Authority would not be able to put out affordable housing. Well, actually, they could.
Well, we could.
Actually, they
That's
could. They wouldn't
literally
need
what we
the,
did
they wouldn't
with
need
the
the, well,
property.
they have to do it through the housing
Yeah,
trust,
which-
but, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, well, open space is working on a huge project with Kestrel. Like,
Right.
what if this I'm not saying this property would apply to that, but what if a property does come up that
It
would,
has not been looked at
Yeah,
against
exactly.
those criteria.
Yeah.
Because we don't have that process.
Right.
It was a great
So
talk.
where are we at this point in time? We have something that came in at the end of July. Do we want to?
I have
Start
more
this up?
questions.
Yes, go
So
ahead.
if we're settled on going forward with the next proposal that comes in, Stephen's going to give us a policy that we're going to endorse. Besides that, can somebody explain to me in layman's terms, what is the impact of I guess what in my mind, I'm seeing in all these cases, pieces of land within the town that were put into Chapter 61, whatever version it is, sometime in the past. So whether it's this parcel or any other parcel, when we pull it out or when we take no action on it and it's allowed to come out, obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, the previous owner or the current owner has received a tax benefit by keeping it in that 61 that the rest of the citizens of town have had to absorb, because we still raise the same amount of taxes. So it's just like having town property. It's exempt, but you take that parcel, whatever the tax was going to be, and you spread it out to all the other taxpayers to pay for all the exempt property in town. So the savings, per se, or the reduced tax that 61 property is getting is burdened by the rest of the population in town.
Right, it went to the original owner,
They got the benefit of not paying the tax.
or paying a lower tax.
Right, but if they're supposed to pay $100 and they only pay $30, that $70 still got collected
Correct.
by all the other property owners in town. So now we pull this out, and let's just say hypothetically this has been sitting here for 20 years. Just pick a number on it. Do we recuperate those taxes for the
Yes.
20 years?
the new owner has to pay?
100%, dollar for dollar?
They have to be paid at the time of the sale.
Yep.
Owner, seller. And there's a formula for each of the programs.
It's called rollback taxes.
Rollback.
Okay, and the rollback, so
And/or
then,
conveyance tax, so you really do need an expert on the program. And I know if this was hand-walked into the town administrator's office, that date might be the date we're all grasping for, but that's not what the statute says. It's the date of mailing or hand delivery. So you got to go to that certified mail sticker and see when it was stamped. And so there are a whole bunch of technicalities, any one of which can put you in court and cause the cost to run up considerably. What I think will come out of this with is a program for a joint meeting of certain boards on short notice to really collaborate on what are we looking at here and what are the various possible interests that it could serve. That we can both provide a good, transparent, and broad consideration of the community's needs and the fastest service to the landowner, because some of these are truly non-consequential.
Yeah, yeah.
so just to finish the thought, so now the rollback tax or conveyance tax is collected. Where does that money go? Does it just fall out to the general fund in next year's free cash certification? Or does it sit in a pile like abatements where you actually have to reduce it and allocate it to the budget?
It would flow into the general revenues.
And
No, I mean,
as over collected revenue, because we're only collecting our revenue on property taxes, we probably budget zero for rollback. So when it comes in, it comes as a surplus receipt and then falls out.
Theoretically, it could be a surplus receipt. So, yeah, and that formula would be additional or extra revenues over what was budgeted.
So assuming we didn't have deficiencies, deficits, it would ultimately end up in free cash.
Correct.
To be used for, okay, yeah, all right.
And I think, Joe, you may know, on the rollback, do you not, hang on, for the rollback, I don't know, say it had been in chapter for 20 years, I don't know that the rollback, doesn't that only go for like 5 years or something? Am I wrong on that?
And it depends on which chapter
Yeah.
it's in, too.
Okay.
It depends.
Okay, so I
It
don't think
depends.
the entire amount
Not the
is
entire
really
life.
recouped.
That's what we have an assessing
Yeah, there's
department for.
multiple,
There's a number of-
different
Yeah,
use, it
there's
depends
a
on the
number of
use.
years that it is recouped.
Okay.
So do we want, what's everybody's druthers? Do we want to take an action on this one tonight? or-
I personally would rather wait until open space. They meet on September 14th, so I would want this maybe back on the September 26th
I second
But
that
that's,
motion.
Okay, is that a motion? Make a motion.
Why add to the bureaucracy? I'm just going to say it.
what?
And why add to the bureaucracy?
So I think it's
Yeah.
important that we have open space weighing in
Because that's how
on these
housing
decisions.
got College Highway, I mean, I don't know, it's not how they did, but
No,
just
it's not,
being aware of.
it's not housing, how housing got College Highway.
No, I know, that's what I
It's
just
giving-
said.
it's giving
But being
the-
aware of what's going on with properties and transfers of properties and properties being taken out of chapter, I think is important function of why open space exists.
Yeah. Otherwise, why else have you open space? if they-
Okay.
And under the existing statutes and what we're going by, there's no open space requirement. Why delay the person that wants to take it out and buy it any longer?
Well, but it's the same person though, right?
Still.
Still the policy.
And in this case, it's the same person.
It's the same person who's
The manager that owns it is just selling it to another entity.
Yeah.
I mean.
is the agent for the property, and he's taking it out to convert it to building lots. So
And
then
what's
the
needed-
the use changes.
Is the consent of the board, of the select board. And we're detailing what more input we need to get to a decision.
Staying within the 120-day.
I would support the motion.
My other question is, are, they're not page numbered, let me see. On 1, 2, 3, on the fourth page we have where they talk about the purchase price, is it the written number?
Yeah.
Or the spelled out number?
Well, there's two
Because there's a
versions.
second version.
The second version is the corrected version.
Okay.
Corrected version, because that was found, that was noticed by the assessors when they
So-
reviewed it.
So,
And the assessor called
yep.
and
I would,
asked
and
that
it looks
be
like
redone.
those are the individual's initials, I would say. So again, just using this as an example so I can educate myself. In the event we executed, deemed not to authorize the first right of refusal and decide to take this property, right? We would then be obligated to pay that price.
That's
Correct.
that price.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you need a funding mechanism within that 120
ARPA.
days also.
Within the-
ARPA. I just want to understand the whole process.
I'm just saying, I don't know if this is something that we want. It's probably not. I think the town has, when it comes to open space and conservation land, we have more than we can handle. But I want to follow a process that I think is
Well, but
in the best interest of what.
It's just a
are
matter
the-
of, we're creating a process right now.
Yeah.
Do we subject this one to it? We've got, if this came in around the 21st of July, which I'm seeing, so we've got, whatever, 30 days down, right? So we do have more time, so another 2 weeks.
We're within.
what we're talking about.
120 days.
Huh?
I think we're
Yeah.
within the 120
But when
days.
did you say open spaces meeting?
September 14th?
14th.
I looked at,
And we're meeting on the 12th, so we'd have to wait until the next meeting at the end of the month, which is still,
Still within the 120.
all right, well, we've talked around enough of this. Can I have a motion one way or another on something?
I think we got a motion.
Well,
Second.
I'll move
Let
that.
me hear the motion again. Now, let me hear the
I
motion.
move to request the open space to review this right of first refusal, and to make the recommendation, and for us to take it up again on our September 26th meeting.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
John?
I am going to, for the record, I'm going to abstain from any votes on this. While I do not believe I have a financial interest where I have to recuse myself, I am an abutter of the full parcel. So I'm just going to stay out of the votes.
Okay. All those in favor, can I hear the vote, please?
Aye.
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 Okay, I'm going to vote no. So 3-1-1.
Yep.
And my only comment there is just that I will agree to start it going forward. I don't know that I feel that we change the process in the middle of what we're doing, so.
You don't have to explain
That's
your
my
vote.
only rationale.
You don't have to.
That's my only rationale, just so you know. Moving on. Classification and compensation study, Collins Center. Ed, update, please.
Yes, Collins Center held the virtual, we'll say, orientation meeting last Tuesday morning. I think we had about 12 to 15 employees, or shall we say, board or committee chairs that were on. Meeting lasted about an hour. From that, A survey was sent out to all the employees who are listed on the list that the Select Board sent to the Collins Center to fill out the survey, which is to be returned to my assistant, Judy Zadonis, by this Thursday, the 31st. And she will send those along to the Collins Center. And then they will utilize those as a first step. We will send them the existing job descriptions. They will later go over the job descriptions, and they will actually, depending on the position, either interview the individuals, or if there's cases of multiple same positions in the same department, the department head for those positions. They actually have about 95% of the financial wage data already in place.
And they have the job descriptions, don't they? Didn't we send those?
I haven't sent those to them. The survey was the first part.
Okay. Well, I sat in on the explanation by the person from Collins, and I thought it was extremely well done. Very clear in terms of what the goals were, that it wasn't, aimed at any particular person. It was looking at the position, and it was looking at, what it means to have this job, and what are the real responsibilities, and how does it compare to wages in other towns, et cetera. So it seemed like it was really pretty well thought out, and I think it was very clear to the employees, and I'm hoping really that they aren't spending 6 hours filling out the questionnaire, because they will have a chance to, meet personally and talk through their own job. And at this point in time, I believe anybody in a department was able to fill out the questionnaire and submit it directly to Collins without going through their supervisor, if I'm correct on that. The next round, as the job description gets tidied up and verified and whatever, then the supervisor from that department would most likely weigh in and agree or make comments on it, the way I understand it. So anyway, it's moving forward, and I just thought it was a really good presentation, so I hope we can bring it to a closure here soon.
And I will actually, once I've figured out how to edit the YouTube video, I will actually send you all the hyperlinks so you can actually watch the meeting.
Yeah, or Jackson could just send one.
Is there an anticipated, are they thinking they're 4 weeks out, 6 weeks, assuming they get cooperation, 8 weeks, 12 weeks?
The thought process is to have it completed before the end of the calendar year.
Okay.
Hopefully before that. Anyway, it's on a track where it's moving, which is good. It's been kind of in hiatus for a while, I think, so we're finally making progress, I think.
And then the steps after that is, if the Select Board wishes to move forward and accept it, that will need a town meeting vote as to be approved as a classification study.
So they would give us a new wage scale as well, proposed wage scale?
Yeah, that's the compensation portion.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any further questions on that?
Thank you.
Okay. All right, next. Certified Procurement Officer.
I think I mentioned this maybe a couple months ago or whatever. As you're aware, I'm leaving and retiring. The state has, the Inspector General's office has come forward with a program because they want at least one certified procurement officer in each municipality. I'm currently the certified procurement officer. Don't know if the next town administrator will be or not, or if you end up with an interim or what have you. My suggestion to the Select Board is to ask Bradley Oxon, the town accountant, if he would be willing to go through that program, because it's basically scholarship free. It's an $1,800 to put someone through this without the state paying for it. It's about $1,800 to pay for the 3 courses. But I would like to suggest that you ask him, and if he's willing to send Bradley to have him apply for that scholarship and to go through this process.
I'll make a motion to direct the town administrator to modify the existing job description of the town accountant to include the duties and responsibility of a certified procurement officer, and to get that through the system, and that the current holder of that office be grandfathered, so not to comply with that. But should they choose to comply with that, there would be a new wage scale and adjustment according, reflective of the duties and responsibilities increased.
It's quite a mouthful. You're pretty
And
good.
to apply for that.
Well, he will have to accept it. He has the ability to say, no, I don't want to, and then he's grandfathered, he still holds his position, but the next time we fill that job has to have that. I'm hoping he'll go along with it, because changing job duties and responsibilities is a trigger for a review of compensation, and if they're taking on the additional responsibilities, it's only fitting that it go through the process.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, I hear a motion. Second by Stephen, okay. Any discussion, questions? No? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes, thank you. All right, and hopefully Bradley will say yes. All right.
He will.
I suspect Ed wouldn't propose it if he didn't already talk to him about it.
Well, I've talked to him several times about
Okay,
it. So.
all right. I know he was excited about taking, his accounting boot camp or whatever that other training is, so I would expect he would be willing to take on another training. We have on the agenda the bylaw amendments, they're not amendments, they're two new bylaws on the membership and operating procedures. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to pass on those tonight. There's revisions that were made based on a couple comments we had, and then the bylaw committee is going to meet next week, so I'll have them for the 12th. So we'll pass on that for tonight. It was kind of a holder sitting here, so we wouldn't forget about them. Financial software, I think we've already dealt with that under the ARPA. So open positions. Ed, you've given us a long list of open positions for employees and boards and commissions.
Yes.
Quite a few here.
And there's an updated one in your packets.
Okay.
And actually, between that update
It's
from
changed already.
yesterday and today, I have another update on it.
It's changed already, yeah.
The town clerk let me know today that Heather Brodeur declined her appointment to the Finance Committee. So instead of 2 vacancies on the Finance Committee, there is 3.
So,
But this has a listing for both sections, both the listing of our open positions for town paid employees and the volunteer boards and committees.
So we only have 2 people on the finance committee?
yeah, can we
Down to 2 again.
do another appointment? Because, I mean, finance won't be able to
won't
meet.
even be
Can we
able to
do another select board appointment, just to at least hold the meetings?
Heather Brodeur?
I would probably try to find somebody to put on here first, because at the last time around, through our town council, it was basically do this as a last resort, and you're doing it basically because it's the end of the year and you need your May and June end of year transfers.
So finance is supposed to meet tomorrow night. I'm assuming that's probably why the posting didn't get posted.
Tomorrow night? Oh, okay.
I mean, there's work for that committee to do. And
Yeah.
if we can't find somebody out of the 6,200 eligible citizens that are out there,
No, that's correct.
Technology guy?
Yeah, you're the technology guy.
So, let's just check. On the, so you don't know whether that was posted, is that what you're saying? So they may not meet tomorrow night?
it's currently not posted.
It's not
So
posted?
there wouldn't be my
So they wouldn't be meeting,
yeah.
okay.
Right.
So then another meeting was going to be a couple weeks out, 2-3 weeks out, at least?
But they have things,
They've got stuff they need to do?
yep. I mean, I'm okay missing the meeting as your liaison.
You're a non-voting liaison.
Free night you gained.
There's nothing free about it.
I don't know. Could we do another 30-day or something appointment of our select board member?
What days?
I would say let's try to get somebody
somebody?
else and appoint at the next
All right,
meeting.
everybody.
I don't object to that, but how are we going to do it? What are we going to do? You know, the
Somebody's gotta go find a person.
definition of insanity is just doing the same thing over and over again. Are we just going to sit here in 2 weeks and say, yeah, we still don't have anybody? Or
Chris,
are
at
we
one
all
time-
going to commit to go knocking on 10 doors and try and
Chris, at one time,
solicit
did
somebody?
you think you knew
I
somebody?
thought I had somebody, and he has not contacted me, so I need to
Would take that as a no.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I don't have anybody at the moment, correct? But I will follow up and see if I can get any headway there, but I don't know if I can.
There's nothing against select board person nominating their spouse or significant other.
No.
I'm not going to do it.
If I want to live with them.
Others might want to.
No, don't look here.
There's somebody who's a banker down the road.
I was not laughing to anybody at home.
You want to go home tonight? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Just my only thing on the revision to the revision to the revision of the postings, that is under fire EMS.
Yeah.
I think there's supposed to be a 1 above the 2, right? We're looking for 2 paramedics and a fire chief.
Right. Yeah, there's a couple of,
But the other one got fixed, the bylaw advisory.
oh, I see, yeah.
Yeah, 1 for the fire chief.
Yeah,
That's all.
right, exactly, yeah. So, anyway, so yeah, so this will be posted on the town website, so we'll be sure we got the correct numbers on here now with this new revision, right? And then,
Well, it'll be the latest revision, and that's actually...
Changes day to day.
Well, yeah, it's going to change day to day, but that's actually what started this whole process, is because we had so many, and I didn't know how many, but so many vacancies on boards and committees that I wanted to get something out on the website just to let people know what type of volunteers on the boards and committees. And once I started that, it was like, well, let's make a list of the paid employees too, just so we can see.
Right, I would, if the TA is open to recommendations, I would modify this, especially on the boards and commissions, and add another column and say, what is the number of seats? Like the bylaw advisory, let's just say there's 5 and there's 1 opening. Okay, well, there's 4 people there. But if it's 3 and there's only, there's 2, like finance, so there's not even quorum there.
Yeah.
So when the outside citizen, when the citizens are looking at this, it'll be clear where the need is. Maybe even add a column, unable to meet, because they don't have
or
quorum.
we could just highlight, just even highlight the ones that are
Something.
struggling with a quorum or something
Yeah.
like that.
Okay.
That might be.
No, I think that's a great idea.
Would be a way to do it.
Wish I thought of that myself.
I know. Can't all be me.
All right, we're getting there now. Come on, guys. Get through this. All right. But anyway, this is a call out. We'll have people look at the website and get some thoughts going here. We need people, obviously, we've needed people in highway and the principal assessor, the assistant town accountant, health agent, as we've talked about, and various boards and committees need at least 1 person on many of them. I would say almost all of them need at least a person. So, all right.
And if we don't have any volunteers for that first meeting in September at the 12th, I think we should set up a booth on the 16th at the Lions Barbecue.
Absolutely.
There we go. Okay, moving on then. FY '23 and '24 expense revenue reports. We've got the expense report through June of last year, so that should be basically the way it is, unless people had put in encumbered requests. Bradley.
Probably other than on some of the grant funds, which
Right.
need to be closed out.
But
on the expense side, yes.
And at this point, shouldn't all encumbrance requests be in?
Yeah.
And there's a separate
All the
line item.
encumbrance requests should
They
be
are.
in.
Yeah,
Correct.
so
Yes.
there's a separate line item, right, in the expenses down at the bottom?
Yes.
Yeah.
For the
So,
encumbrance.
so what?
Prior fiscal year bills.
Right. So one of the things, I guess, a question, and whether you may not know this, I don't want to put you totally on the spot here, but under this, so it looks like on the '23 one, so we've got a couple things, the MS4 storm thing, there's like 6,000 left in that, and another 8,000 left in highway building expenses from '23, unless those were encumbered. So those are ones that I would hope, if there were some outstanding bills, that we'll see them, that we won't have all that money.
The one I'll have to look into, because we've done this different ways, I believe we did MS4 as an article last year. And if it's an article, it carries forward.
Okay.
Without even an encumbrance.
Okay.
The other one, the highway expenses would not.
Yeah.
So that, that should be cleared out at this point, either through actual expenses or if there was anything that was requested as an encumbrance from it, it would have been transferred out of that, which would reduce that amount and put into the encumbrance prior fiscal year bill in 2024.
So is there a line then in the general fund for encumbrances? Is that what you just said before?
Yes.
And that would be where, toward the end, or?
I think it's on one of the last
Thank you.
pages.
Yeah, you just put me, finally,
I know.
through all that,
No,
you
it's okay.
finally
No,
put me on the
I
spot.
hadn't noticed it, that's all, that's fine.
Yeah, there should be a line item in there for prior fiscal year
Prior
bills.
fiscal- Okay. Oh, yeah, I see it. Prior fiscal year expenses, we've got, it looks like 16,000 about as a balance to be, whatever. spent
Sounds
out.
low.
So that's the,
I'll have to check with Bradley, because I was thinking that actually the encumbrance for just the fiscal year '22 audit would have been
Okay,
like that amount.
so maybe a check. And that's another thing to remember as.
Was that in the 23 or the 24?
23, yeah.
Oh, okay, that makes sense, because
The
that would have been
23.
from '22.
It's a 23 one.
Okay,
right.
that makes more
Exactly.
sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's.
Sorry about that.
About that for 23, yeah.
So when that entry, so it looks like that entry needs to be updated, but when that entry gets updated, they're going to debit the actual expense line, and then they'll credit that line, which creates that entry. So the true expenses, when we look at the next budget, we'll be hitting those lines. It's just instead of going out through a check and paying a vendor, it's basically like a prepay. And then
Right.
it goes down there as a balance sheet entry,
Yeah, you just have, even though it ended up getting paid in '24, you'd have to go back to '23 to look at it.
Right, but when we're looking at, fast forward to the budget,
Right.
we're looking to actual expended, that line item will reflect that true expense, even if it was paid in the current year for the previous. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think the other two, and maybe, oh, no, never mind, they're capital funds, so they stay around. Never mind, I take that back. Never mind.
Yeah, capital would also, capital's a separate article, so they would carry forward. One thing I talked about Bradley about actually last week is I'd actually like to have him start a new process here, is basically, and I won't say the close, but after the fiscal year ends, and I don't mean the capital items that just got approved in May for the following July, but I think we should be sending out letters to each of the department heads on existing capital of, okay, where does this stand? Is it still ongoing? Have you finished the project? If you finished the project, can we close out, any funds and return them to capital? Mm-hmm. We just had an instance for somebody using some capital funds that were sitting there for about 3 years that probably should have been closed out.
Well, and wouldn't they normally, if it's a capital item, doesn't it come through you for procurement?
Not necessarily.
Surely?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I mean, depending on the dollar value up front, but once, say that account's he's expended most of it, and for whatever reason, like $2,500 has been hanging around, and you don't have to come back through the certified procurement officer
Right.
to spend $2,500, because that should be basically best business practices.
gotcha, okay. All right,
And if it seems somewhat related to that follow-up project, then you probably wouldn't question it.
yep, okay. And I think for the FY '24 reports, we're in the second month, basically, of the fiscal year, so there's not a whole lot to comment there maybe, but I think on the revenue reports from '23 too, we were still looking to see where they are. Last time Bradley, I think, or somebody, Jen was here, told us that they were on track with
Yeah,
their things on this.
I think the last report for '23 for revenue is through the end of April,
Okay.
so it's got May and June left.
Made it.
Right, which based on their timeline, they said by September 8th, they would have all that done. So they're a week away, because, I mean, right now, the revenue is showing, if I could jump in, we had a shortfall in property tax collections of 2.1 million. We're at capacity with alcohol beverage licenses, yet we didn't collect everything. So if we issued all our licenses, and that's alcohol licenses are January 1st.
Right.
So if we're at capacity and we have a shortfall of $2,400 in April, who hasn't paid their bill, because as far as I know, all our alcohol establishments are still open.
Yeah.
So if they haven't paid their bill,
Yeah.
if this is accurate,
Well, and just to remind, we asked Bradley and
And
Jennifer.
I'd have to go back and
so-
take a look at that and see if one-day permits are promulgated in there, or if that's just the renewals for the permanent ones.
it's a very even number.
Okay. Well, we have a schedule from Jen and Bradley to get things tidied up for the end of fiscal year, so we're going to hold them to their schedule as much as we can here. So they know what they put out. They are the ones that developed it. Okay, so we will be looking for it. Next, I think we're on to follow-up recommendations from the fire department operational report, and this was primarily focused, I think we agreed last meeting that we were going to move ahead with the air quality study for the fire station and the living quarters, that trailer. We thought there were two sort of low-hanging fruit items from Russ Anderson's report that we should act on immediately, so we did approve moving forward with the air quality survey study. But then we were checking on the 1911 inspections for the fire engines and the ambulances, and last meeting we had one that was seemingly a complete identification of issues for, thinking it was engine 2, but I can't remember, one of the fire engines that had gone through the 1911 inspection. And was it? Okay. The 1911 inspection as recommended by Chief Anderson in his report. And that was relatively costly. I think it was close to a $3,000 cost, if I'm not mistaken.
$1,000 a piece.
To do all the assessment of the, what was going on with that fire engine. It didn't include any recommended, any repair costs. It was this, this was a study. So Interim Chief Fasoli had come to us and said what they had been doing was working with a company in Westfield, I believe, that many of the fire departments tend to use this company in Westfield or Holyoke to do their inspections, and they do their annual state inspections and not necessarily doing the 1911 inspection. Chief Workman had that one done right before he left, but it was only on that one engine. So we asked to see a set of reports, which we have in our package tonight, about what had been done, and they look like they've been done somewhere between the September-November timeframe, and they will be due up again if they're going to follow this process using Skyline Services in Westfield, I believe. So that's about what we know here, and I don't know, Ed, any further thoughts? If you've had talks with Chief Fasoli at all about this? I mean, he seemed to feel, I think, that it was sufficient to do the inspections the way they've been doing them on a yearly basis rather than paying for the big 1911 inspection.
Yeah, and in your original package, you've got what Chief Anderson sent me about what's included in the 1911 inspections for comparison, and then he sent me a follow-up, and it just says, I just wanted to clarify something that was misspoke at our last meeting. The 1911 inspection of vehicles includes mechanical and pump equipment. The DOT that the chief spoke of does not, only safety. I believe 2 of your trucks did not pass pump tests, requiring more to be done on valves for vacuum issues. This would be used in areas of no hydrants. Also on the ambulance, the state only looks for obvious issues with ambulance oil leaks, grooves on brake rotors, et cetera, not bumper-to-bumper mechanical. And he also wanted to let us know that, Chief Fasoli said he had contacted both, I think it was Easthampton and Westfield, and neither of them did the 1911 inspections. Chief Anderson wanted to let us know that one of the reasons that Westfield does not do the 1911 inspections is because they have a full-time mechanic on duty that is looking at these apparatus basically on a daily or weekly basis.
Regular basis, yeah.
Do we know what the initial underlying reason was? So my understanding from listening to everybody talk at the past few meetings is that we hadn't traditionally done the 1911 inspections. Do we know what the trigger was that caused Chief Workman in his final 3 months to call for a 1911 inspection?
I don't.
It just seems out of character, and
Was it that licensing issue with the state? Was it their?
that was on the ambulances.
It's on the
The
ambulance,
ambulance,
yeah.
that's right. Okay. No, I didn't.
So I go back to, and I understand Chief, and I respect Chief Fazoli, and for the record, I mean, of everybody, he is the most qualified mechanic, I mean, by trade, that is his training, so, you know, he's saying, I think it's okay, I kind of put some weight to that, but the next chief may not have that mechanical background, or mechanic background, and I still think we're building a case here, or a foundation for whoever the next chief is, he or she, to come in, and doing these 1911 reports will at least give them a foundation to start from. Whether or not we continue to do it on an annual basis, to me, is a separate discussion. But I'm still in the fact-finding thing, and I think for $3,000, I think that's cheap money to determine our full liability and exposure, personally.
Yeah, and I, you know, if I can speak, you know, I would agree with that rationale, you know, especially if we're at a point in time we either have to, if there's something, shall we say, that needs repairing on the pump side of things that wouldn't be done in the DOT, you know, inspection or some of these other areas.
Yeah.
And if we're trying to build a baseline for either bringing this existing fleet up so it meets all those requirements, and then that next step of, okay, do we need to bring it up so that it's going to meet these requirements for 2 or 3 years or 10 years?
Right.
And we're also, I think, building a sound case for,
Replacement.
well, replacement, a capital plan, you know, what have you.
Right, which ultimately will need to go to the voters.
Correct.
So it's not the 5 of us sitting up here who don't know, from their point of view, anything about mechanics or mechanical work.
Yeah.
It's, here's the report, independent, in the tanker is engine 1, correct?
Yes.
Engine 3 was a frontline pump, which isn't even on here. And if we have, to me, having that 1911 report, which I'm assuming is going to show deficiencies and that we shouldn't be investing money in this, that should be attached to our grant to the feds to get 95% reimbursement from the feds. It's only going to build our case. And if it costs us $1,000 to recoup $700,000 from the feds to put a new frontline tanker on,
Yeah.
I say we spend the money.
And I'll have to go back and look. Maybe it was engine 1 that Chief Workman had, the 1911.
Well, according to the report, 4, 1, and 2 were not done. Only 3 was, which I thought was the newest pumper.
I
Yeah,
think you're right.
Yeah,
Okay. I was trying to remember what was out in that,
I mean, according to our minutes. here.
out in that field that day that they were
Yeah.
right.
doing the analysis on it.
Well, I think the one that was parked behind the fire station was engine 1, right? That's over at-
Yeah.
The one over at Pequot is engine 1.
Right, and that was out in the field for a while too, but like I say, on that particular day, which, yeah, it was like June 28th, it was right at the end of the fiscal
Yeah.
year. I remembered them being here the entire day
Right.
testing one particular truck.
Right. Well, and if that was engine 1 that we're talking about, the old one, this one had its inspection done in Westfield in May of this year, and that alone was $950. So, because they did the repairs at the same time.
Right,
So, I mean,
yeah,
there were things
yeah.
that they found that they repaired.
That
So
they did at the same
that's
time,
the
yeah.
difference with using this local service, is that they identify and they repair
Sure.
as they go. So that's probably the difference. So the 3,000-ish, I think it was for that one engine. So what this would be would be.
No. It was 1,000. And 385 of that was travel money. So it was only $520 for the actual inspection. But the bill was 1,000
For the 1911?
for the one that they did, yeah.
Oh, was it? I'm sorry.
Because it was $385 in mileage,
Okay.
which would only be, if we have them do all 3 at one time, they'd only charge us
Right,
mileage
yeah.
once.
Okay, sorry, yeah, I guess I misunderstood that, okay. Because just to say then.
Leave.
Because, so then what we would need to do is to do both ambulances and the other two.
No. No, this was for, the recommendation was for the 2 remaining fire apparatus
Yeah.
and the 1 older
Ambulance.
ambulance, the number 2.
Of the older, yes, correct, the older ambulance, okay. Okay, because they've got both ambulances in here that have been done locally, and then whatever B1, is that the brush truck?
Yes, that's the brush truck.
Okay. So there were 5 things that have been done locally in terms of this package, but, that in itself is, it
Which
seems like
locally, they'd still have to do the state inspection.
Yeah.
But in theory, I mean, one of the things is worn wiper blades. I mean, how often are we driving these vehicles that the wiper blades are worn out every year?
I don't know, it's ozone deterioration.
They're parked inside.
Just to move this along a little bit.
Anyway, so what are we recommending? I mean, I guess the question would be, if we were to go with the idea of pushing forward for the 1911 inspections, where would we identify the money to do this? Where's the money going to come from?
Out of the existing fire department budget.
Yeah, exactly.
I make a motion that the select board direct the acting fire chief to have 1911 inspections conducted on engines 4 and 1, as well as ambulance 2, and to utilize existing funds within the department, and to report back to the select board within 2 weeks of just notifying us of the scheduled dates for the inspection.
Or possibly date, because
Date,
last time we
correct.
paid multiple, we don't have to
Yeah.
have multiple trips.
I mean, it may take 3 months for this to happen, but let's at least get it on the books.
Sure. So it's essentially the two fire engines that did not already have the inspection.
Engine
plus
4 and engine
Plus
1.
the old and,
Ambulance 2.
okay.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So be it. All right. Fire chief job profile duties. We were due to get John some tidbits of information if we had some edits, and I started some, and I think I never sent them to John, so I'm remiss in that myself. John had given us a bit of a profile, and we were talking about the kind of person that we might need for a fire chief. So John, I don't know if how urgent we are to get this going here. We sort of are, but I mean, we can pull up the one that you had last time and go through it, or?
No, I'm guessing, all of us weren't here last time, were we?
We're only 3, so that was it.
Only 3.
Oh, that, yeah.
Yeah, so Stephen and Joy were out on a couple of these things, so that's why we wanted to also
So
wait.
what I can do between now and our next meeting is I'll take the existing document that I had, and then Chris, if you want to send me your 2 adjustments, and then if anybody else has them, and if I don't hear from anybody, then I'll assume they're good with what's written there, and then from that, I'll start writing up the suggested charge, as well as a timeline, because I at least for one, believe we should figure out how to incorporate the assessment center,
Yeah.
which takes some of that responsibility off that committee.
Right. Well, and I think too, to understand how long it would take to engage, to get scheduled with the assessment center too. I don't have a sense of that. Is that something we've got to wait, is it a 60-day wait to even be on their list, or, how does that work? So I think some further information about that would be helpful. But for you guys that weren't here, the assessment center would be the idea that the final couple candidates, depending, whatever we decided, right, would go through this assessment center, which is basically a day-long simulation kind of exercise done by professionals that do this kind of thing and see how people react under pressure to certain scenarios, et cetera, among other things.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I'd like, by the day following our next meeting, I'd like to get the posting out.
Yeah, okay.
And then we can
Everybody, please,
backfill
yeah,
and work from there.
If John, you'd send those around again, and let's everybody commit to put
Yep.
any words in. We had talked about whether we needed to have a strong chief or not. Do we need somebody, with an EMS background or a managerial background, or, what are we looking for? So we need to just sort of, from your own point of view, from everything you've heard so far, what your thoughts would be on that, okay? All right, thanks. We'll pick that back up again as a high priority for our next agenda. Next on your TA search update, and here on 2, I'm not totally sure where we are on this, but let me pull up 2 things. So in your package, you have a draft of a town administrator search committee charge. Draft 1 was what I had presented last meeting as a first stab at this, which was 9 members, 1 from the select board, 4 from the general public, and 4 representatives of town departments, essentially a 4 to 6 month period. The idea would be that we would still go with an outside consulting firm, which we'll get to in a minute. They would do all the basic advertising, recruiting, initial screening of applicants, and then work with the committee to do some scoring and identify the top finalists, I guess I would say, and then narrow it down after some interviews to the top couple or one or two to recommend a select board to interview for final interviews. Discussion last meeting, John was the one that was proposing that really we ought to consider that the committee should not be such a broad committee that included town department heads and members of the public, but just be the select board itself. So draft 2 reflects that wording somewhat. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look through it, but it's basically that this committee is really just us. We had talked about, John, I believe you had mentioned that you would like to have some sort of listening sessions, and I didn't figure out a good way maybe to...
I think you have that in here under...
Put something in here, but it's...
The fourth or fifth paragraph, the committee will provide town employees an opportunity. I think notice of a public meeting where it's open to the public, any members of the public, and department heads, and give them advance notice. Kind of make it... I don't want to say a free-for-all. It's just like if you had a wish list.
Yeah, where is it? I'm sorry.
The fifth paragraph? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Fifth paragraph, yeah.
Oh, yeah. The committee will provide town employees the opportunity to suggest skills, attributes, and duties of the future town administrator.
I would say town employees / the public.
Okay, okay.
I mean, it's a listening session.
Yep. Okay.
With clear parameters. We are only discussing and hearing about going forward. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you like to see?
Okay.
I don't want to hear anything about the past 5 administrators we've had.
Right. And would this be during an agenda item for a select board meeting?
I would say we'd have, in my mind, I'm saying we set aside Monday nights.
Set a separate night.
Pick a night.
Yeah, separate night. Okay, got it.
And it'd be, a 60-minute window, and if we have to continue, we can.
Over Zoom?
If we want to figure out a survey that we could send out or something.
Yeah. Okay, all right. And then
some people may not be comfortable approaching the mic.
Yeah, well, and, Joy was saying we could do maybe Zoom or remote in too.
Yeah.
So either way, we could work that out. Okay. So we can make that little change. So in general, since this is new to both Joy and Stephen, I think they hadn't heard that idea of either 9, a larger committee, or really just saying the 5 of us is where the buck stops, and, we can incorporate people's
5.
inputs, but, it may delay the process to go with a larger committee.
As much as I don't want to add anything else to our workload, I think this is a time, I don't have the words because it's 6 o'clock at night. Yeah, time sensitive, thank you, and we need to just get it done.
Yeah.
Well, and I would just add that reading through the proposals from the 2 search firms, they have their own outreach activities that they intend to carry
They do
out.
the bulk of the work, really, and no matter which one we choose here, it's a matter of, whether we just, have a smaller committee but incorporate input, or we have a larger committee, which, again, knowing I'm talking myself out of it, because knowing the problems we have to recruit people.
That's
To be the other
Where are we going to get them?
Finding the town employees may not be the difficult part, but finding, say, the 4 suggested
Right.
members of the public may, again, delay us. So I'm leaning toward the,
I would
Draft
want
2.
to, paragraphs 6 and 7,
okay,
I potentially would want to modify or tweak.
yep,
If we could pause this discussion for a second and just be heard on the next item about the 3 proposals we received.
sure.
So of the 3 proposals we received, in no particular order, it's MRI, Collins, and CPA.
Right.
So I assume we're going to take some action on this, so I'll just start my thought on this. So I reviewed them and I scored them from my ranking and ranked them. And the one that I thought was the most attractive, and it was the least expensive, was Community Paradigm Associates, CPA.
Sure, Doc.
What I liked about theirs is they offered the
An
ability.
email.
Yeah, we did.
They're in an email? Yeah,
Yeah, they came out
they're not printed out.
today.
I read them and just got them.
They were sent out a couple weeks ago when we got them.
Yep.
But I think we sent them back around again as well.
Thank you for that.
But what they offered that the other two, that I didn't see in the other 2 is they offered 2 alternatives for the screening committees. One that, We could do it, or they would put professional screening committees in there. And I like using their professional screening committee at least to get through the 467 applicants that are going to initially show up.
Yeah. Actually, John,
Go ahead.
just to be sure we're talking about the right one, the one Community Paradigm had one pricing. I think it was the MRI group that had two options, option A and option B. Just double check yourself on that. That's the one from
So under community paragraph,
Municipal Resources Incorporated.
I believe, that what I understood, it was the same price whichever option we picked when it got down to the screening. So selection under well, they're not paged either. Number 6, screening process and review of resumes. No, I'm sorry, number 7, selection of semifinalists. We can do one of either. Have a screening committee option. The information will be reviewed with the screening committee, which in essence would be us, on a confidential basis. I think that creates a potential issue, because if the screening committee is the select board, as Ed pointed out earlier, I don't believe that's an appropriate reason for us to be in executive session, and therefore it may limit our pool, because they'd have to become public immediately just for applying. So I say go with the second option there, a professional panel. The select board is not involved. The information will be reviewed with a panel of municipal professionals to determine candidates to be interviewed. Such selection will be based upon submitted material screening process, generated information, any specific knowledge candidates by members of the panel, right? So that gets us through that level. Now the selection of the finalists is the same thing. Do we do the screening committee or not? And this is still before it gets to us. I would suggest that it be the professional panel option, and if we wanted to, perhaps we put one of the 5 of us. We say we want to go with that option, but we want one of the 5 of us on that panel. Right? So then, and that gets through that whole process. Then eventually, when it comes to all 5 of us, we're at the final, and we're at the stage where they've all signed releases acknowledging that their name's going to become public.
Okay. And this one, yeah, so this is Community Paradigm, you're right.
Yeah.
But they had one price, the other one gave us 2 prices.
Correct.
That's right.
Community program was $12,500, and
Plus
an
advertising.
additional $300, anticipated $300 for advertising,
Right.
for $12,800.
And they most recently, apparently, I'm not sure when, they did the search for the town administrator in South Hadley.
Yep.
Right.
According to this. So that's one.
I also like CPA because they're a Massachusetts firm.
Yep.
MRI I liked, but they are a New Hampshire firm, so extra points went to the Massachusetts firm. And the Collins Institute, just based on our HR study, isn't high on my list to start with.
The MRI ones too, because they were a New Hampshire firm, were more closely to the New Hampshire border.
Right,
And when I
Boston.
just looked at the listing of towns that they had previously recruited for. So it seemed like maybe they weren't so connected with our area.
Yeah.
That's my thought on it.
I think the one of these, and I'm forgetting if it was the Community Paradigm one, the number of people that they had on their committee was, or the search committee group, was pretty extensive, I think, if I'm finding the right one. So we had the principal, the founding manager, Bernard Lynch.
Yeah.
Okay, and another principal, Sharon Flaherty, who's got lots of experience in communications and project management, public relations. Another guy named John Petrin, who's been a town administrator in Burlington and town manager of Ashland and town administrator of Harvard, town of Harvard. So there's 3, I guess, in this, am I right? Three
Bernie
that are
Lynch
named
is a
on the
smart
team.
guy.
3, I'm sorry?
Bernie Lynch is a very smart
Uh-huh.
guy.
Yeah, so he's got a bigger
They're-
team than that, but he's
They're a good company.
he's named three people that would be assigned this task, if you will. And I think it was the other one, MRI, I kind of liked a little bit because it did give us 2 options. But again, the pricing was very similar, I think.
Yeah.
Was around 12,000, and then the second option was 7,000, I think, something like that. And they, I thought, aside from being, I mean, I guess there could be some pros and cons in terms of having somebody outside of Massachusetts take a look at things. But they did have that choice of having just a recruitment assistance rather than the comprehensive kind of
Yeah.
profile for us. I think in general, all 3 profiles, all 3 approaches, quite honestly, I didn't see much difference in anybody. I mean, it's all that, using their networks, doing the advertising, doing the recruiting, going out and reaching out through their networks to find out who may be out there, because I think just about everybody made that point that, just sitting and advertising and waiting for somebody to show up at your door is not the way to go.
And I would say with at least two of these firms, it is common practice in the municipal world, if you are not a town administrator and you want to be, you've already forwarded them your resume and what areas you're looking into, so they already have an available database
Yeah.
to draw from, and
I think all of them, have that capability.
Yeah.
I thought, actually, the MRI one was a little bit top-heavy. They had 5 people slated for their team, which I thought was a bit much. And then at the same time, I thought Collins is as good as they are and as known as they are. I felt from their proposal, the way it was written, that they're heavier on the HR piece than they are on other things. And I think they excel at HR kind of work, although they've obviously recruited others. But that came through a little bit stronger there, whereas the other ones, I think, maybe a little bit broader. So, anybody else have any comments now that we've all chatted, already talked about? Dan?
I put Collins first, then I put CPA, then MRI, and I ranked them. I thought, just based on Collins' size and maturity and rank, I thought they would have a bigger pool, but that's all opinion to pull from. Like, as you have said, they're all going after the same fish, right?
Well, they've all got experience. I mean, I think all 3 have got extensive experience in doing executive recruitment. I mean, no matter what kind of position it is. So I don't know that we could go too far wrong. It's just a matter of how we decide to work with them in that basis.
So I think the other question is, how much did we budget in the select board expenses for this? I don't remember.
I think it was around 5,500 is what I have in my head. So we were quite a bit under budgeted here. Yeah, I think I might have had it a little bit higher at one point, and then we scaled it back. So I'm saying maximum, I'm pretty sure it was 5,500. But before we go there, Stephen, you had a chance to read through them? Did you have any?
I looked through all of them, and like you, I thought that they were comprehensive proposals. It was hard to tease out real differences besides where their office was located. I thought the profiles of the staff by CPA were particularly good. That resonated with me. The screening support by a panel of professionals, I picked up on that as well. Yeah, I had CPA and MRI as front runners, and I found it hard to differentiate.
Okay, yeah. Joy, did you have a chance, or had you had a chance to look at them? Or?
To look at them?
Yeah.
Not thoroughly.
Okay. Okay, I don't want to have you say anything if you're not ready to say
Yeah, I know.
It's fine. I know you've been busy with a few things here.
I trust your judgments. I did review them, but not thoroughly enough.
All right. Well, I think I'm hearing a level of consensus here.
Yep.
So I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the chair to enter into negotiations with Community Paradigm Associates, Paradigm Associates, LLC, for our town administrator search, and that we authorize expenditures up to $13,000, $5,500 of it to come from the budgeted select board expenses, and the balance as a placeholder to come from ARPA funds. If we can identify other sources, we can switch it out, but let's us do this. By my calculation, we are 16 weeks away from our town administrator's departure, and their timeline says 12 to 13. So if you can get this executed before Friday, that'll leave us 3-week window of crossover, assuming they don't have to give a 2-week notice.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people would. I'm sure people have to give notice no matter where they are.
Just based on what I've seen from planning board postings to the newspapers and costs for advertising, I feel the CPA is being conservative in their $300 estimate for advertising. I think that if you want to recruit quicker, they're going to have to spend more money and target more media outlets.
I think as they said in their outline, they're going to post it on the MMA, which again is anybody that's in municipal government, that's the job you want, you're checking that every Monday morning.
Okay, so it doesn't matter.
It's $100 to post it there.
And the network that they use is amazing, and it's really got no cost to it.
Okay.
But you're right, if they're going traditional paper and advertising,
Yeah,
it would be more.
crazy,
There's
yeah.
some specific Massachusetts website.
All right, so up to 13,000, 5,500 out of select board expenses, and the balance to probably come from ARPA.
ARPA is a backstop.
Yeah, well,
Have to put an ad on
at this
the
point in
radio.
time, in order to be able to do that. So I would have to get a proposal into ARPA land for us to consider too.
I'll modify my motion to exempt the chair from having to submit a proposal to ARPA, and that this motion serve as the application through ARPA.
That would be a policy violation,
We still want an,
which I believe is a $5,000 fine to
Either
each
way,
member of the select
I
board.
just,
Go back to.
I want them under contract by Friday.
well, I think we'll still do an ARPA application just so we've got a paper trail on everything, but we won't obviously take it up until the 12th. So if I need to talk to these people ahead of time, then you're going to have the ARPA application after the fact. If everybody's okay with that?
Second.
All right, so I have a motion. Did I hear a second? I'm sorry.
Dan seconded.
We did have a second. Dan or Stephen, either one. Both.
Whatever.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, hearing no opposition, CP is our choice, Community Paradigm Associates, LLC. Okay. Great, all right. Next on the list real quick, draft, and this is a second or third draft, Southampton Senior Center Building Committee draft charge. We had talked about this just very briefly last week and had a couple of changes in here, which I will show you in a minute. And actually, the COA board is going to take a look at it when they meet too.
So just to circle back, since we approved the CPA, can we modify paragraphs 7 and 8 of the charge
of
to allow
yes.
them to do all the screening, so not to limit our pool? And then I don't know what the committee feels of whether or not we want to put one select board member on that final round before it gets to us or not. I don't know what everyone's comfort level is. And I don't know that needs to be decided tonight, but that would be my adjustments
All
to
right,
the
so
charge.
you're saying use the panelist option is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. I can tinker with that a little bit. Okay. All right, I'll go back to that and modify that. Okay.
Did we need to approve that draft?
Yeah, is everybody okay with that? I think we mentioned it, so we'll just do that. Yep.
Absolutely.
Then we can take up a final vote on that on our next meeting.
Yeah, so I'll get the charge redone for the next meeting. Okay. All right, so the Senior Center Building Committee draft charge, this will be looked at when the COA board meets next week, I think, so we can wait on it if you would like. This was I just put it in there because we had done some quick revisions. The two main ones were down, I guess it's on the back of page 2. One is the top of page 2, which is something that John suggested, that all such funds raised shall be deposited in a separate town account. So this is responding to any fundraising or capital campaigns that might be done. And I don't know if that's wordy enough, John, or if you would like it wordier than that.
That's good.
I can take that. It was assumption that it would be managed and accounted for through the treasurer and accountant's office. And then the other one that is a new one is second paragraph down from there is work with the town administrator to hire an owner's project manager using qualification-based selection process. OPM will be hired to provide guidance to the committee during the design and construction of the center in accordance with MGL requirements governing OPM services. From my understanding, talking to a couple of engineers and others that have been involved in building committees, and please correct me, having an OPM is sort of a standard practice, to have somebody who really is that interface between the committee and...
It's actually a state requirement, once you hit X amount of dollars in that
okay.
project,
Yeah.
which this would.
Right, so that's a new thing from what you saw the last time. And then the last paragraph, I just combined the two, that the committee shall develop a communication strategy, make continued efforts to keep the residents informed of the progress, and work with the select board in terms of presentations at town meetings, et cetera, budget meetings, whatever. So those are the three main...
And the other change isn't it giving the COA director voting authority?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes, that was a recommendation last time, too. So there are three sort of de facto members, if you would say. So the COA board chair, the COA director, and a member of the select board, and then 4 others that will be town residents selected, appointed by the select board. And I think, did we put it in here, or is this not the one? We were going to add this, I'm sorry. So there is one more change. Ed had suggested that we put in the the appointments be staggered, so, oh, no, we did that. We did there, it's there. Hey, you got the right one, okay.
Well, the change was that the
Right.
staggered ones are not the
The three.
chair of the COA
Yeah.
board or the.
Right. It's there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
so
the
it's the at-large members
director,
and the
yeah.
select board members are on for 1 to 3 years staggered appointment. Whereas the other ones are sort of set members of the COA director and the COA board chair are set members of the committee. And the others get appointed on a 1 to 3 year staggered appointment. That was the change too.
And then the other one was the kind of little added piece in there that added to the fact that the town administrator would work with the committee to procure or acquire the land.
Yes.
But that little note that also says that town meeting approval is
Right.
required.
Correct. That's on the second one on this second page. Yep. So work with the town administrator to purchase the land that was recommended in the study and to obtain town meeting approval for the acquisition. Okay, so those are the changes. But if we don't want to vote on it tonight, that's okay, because the COA board will take it up again. But if you've got any other thoughts or comments, we'll take it up and I'll bring it back on the 12th for final. Yep.
I don't know how strongly I feel about this, but I guess since I thought of it. The committee shall report to the select board, period. The committee shall report to the select board at no less than 6-month intervals.
Okay.
I don't know. I could see this process going fast or taking a while, and then do we lose track of it? I don't know. Again, I don't know if we need to put it in there, but I just throw it out there.
Okay, well, I'll just write it down. Yep. Okay. And again, there would be somebody from select board on the
Right, so maybe it's
on the
not.
committee, so maybe that would be the way that it would be reported back, like we do with our normal select board reports, so. Okay, so I will pull this back out for next meeting for final edits and review, okay? If there's any other things that you see, think about, give me a holler. All right, any other business that cannot wait until the September 12th meeting? Hearing none, let's move on. I don't know that we've got other things, old business we've kind of dealt with. I know you're still dealing with a couple things on the recording of our attendant, right, for our town voice over IP message. Is that under
I've actually, well, I think I've finalized the
script?
the script, but I'm going to send it along to
Okay.
my two counterparts on the subcommittee
Okay, good.
for any input.
Okay, so our next thing up is really a whole bunch of personnel stuff. And John, given what you said at the beginning of the meeting, what do we do? Do we,
I guess we can just start, and if we don't have enough information, we can hold them. So I'll make a motion to accept PCF Michael Moran, heavy equipment operator, separation effective 8/7/23.
I'll second.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
I'll make a motion for the purposes of discussion to take up PCF Robin Richard, assistant to the highway superintendent, correction to hourly rate effective July 1st, 2023, which,
In the cover memo here,
yes, but
change from $20.09 to $20.69.
however, the effective date on the PCF before us says 7/1/2021.
Right. That it does.
So I'm sorry, was it seconded?
Second.
Second, Joy, yeah.
My question on that, again, I was not at this meeting, is, and I didn't go back to look at it, but my understanding of the budget for the highway department, that the wages are in 3 line items. And if I'm wrong, okay, but it's the highway superintendent has his own line item, the administrative clerk has their own line item, and then all the other employees that are under the collective bargaining agreement have their own line item,
And
correct?
I'm nitpicking, but because of the fact that there are basically summer and winter wages due to the snow and ice Is 4.
But would
You were essentially correct.
Right.
Those 2 other ones, that's all the union employees.
Right. So I don't understand how the town accountant could sign off on this because to me, it's a line item. When I raised the question afterwards and asked about it, the response I got is, there's enough wages at the highway department to cover this. And if the admin was lumped with everybody else, I would say, yeah, because you don't have the mechanic, you can move that money back and forth, there's no problem. But it's in its own standalone line item. So I do not believe that the town accountant should have certified this document. That being said, I don't disagree with this increase. I do believe it was an error made in the steps, and we've already corrected it at the transfer station, because that was an enterprise fund which had the funds available for it. But as much as I want to go along with this, because I believe it's the fair and right thing to do, I will not vote for a deficit. And I believe this creates a deficit in its existing format.
Trying to find it in the expense report here. Yeah, so there is a highway superintendent's salary and admin highway.
Right.
Admin assistant highway, and then general highway wages, right?
So the admin assistant highway is the hours based on the incorrect hourly rate of $20.09. So the 60 cents per hour adjustment's not there. But if I'm sitting at PPB, I look down at this form, and if I don't have the budget memorized in my head, well, the town accountant signed off on this, that line item has sufficient funds, but I believe that signature is an error.
Is the original dollar amount in that expense report less than $21,600.36?
Yes.
It is?
$21,014.14.
Then John would be correct, because by my calculations, 20 hours a week at $20.69 times 52.2 weeks is $21,600.36.
Right.
So this is a balancing act for me, because I believe the employee is entitled to this, because had it been pointed out to us at the budget, we would have corrected it then, but we didn't. And the funds don't exist right now, so to support this today, under the proposed amendment here, creates a deficit, which, to vote in favor of that, you are violating Mass General law to do so.
Yep.
Unless somebody can suggest an alternative way to get around the law.
It's all perspective.
I know.
Will it create a deficit? Yes, probably in the last payroll period of the fiscal year. So, yeah, and you can't, let's say, you can ask for a transfer at a special town meeting, or you can do one in May, try for one in May and June. Can't 100% say that will happen, but.
Well, if we get to May or June, the department head can transfer funds.
Well, he can with the select board and finance committee's approval. So, I mean, if you looked at that.
So you're getting a little creative, so I'll amend my motion
Wait a minute.
to approve this, subject to the correction of the effective date, right, of 7/1/23, not 21. Provisional that the shortfall of funds are moved into this account, this line item, prior to June 1st. Otherwise, the employee will have to go without pay, will have to be furloughed for a period of time to make up that difference, however many hours that comes out to be.
Can this be done, can we do this at a special town meeting? Is that what you said?
You can do it at a special town meeting, or you can do it in May
So I'm okay, because the intent is to make the employee whole, but leave some onus on the department head
to do
get the money in there.
Yeah.
So I'll offer that as an amendment to my motion.
Okay. so
And
we
that
have
was
an
prior to
amendment?
June, right? You
I'd
said
say by June 1st.
June 1st. So that would incorporate probably a special town meeting and/or the annual meeting, at which point either one could
Or in the month of May,
accommodate a
the
transfer.
department head could initiate a transfer.
A transfer, right, yeah.
Assuming we have a quorum in finance.
Yeah, okay, so we have an amended motion on the floor. Could we have a second?
Second.
Stephen, second, okay. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
And then just lastly on that, if, although this was very public here, if the town administrator could just have a one-on-one with the town accountant, just to clarify that particular,
I will be happy
we
to.
rely on that signature for a reason,
yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
that's all.
And just to note, too, that Robin is a member of the PQB. She recused herself in this discussion.
Right.
All right, the next one?
Next is a PCF for Robin Richard, Water Administrative Assistant, increase in weekly hours from up to 5 to up to 15 hours as needed. And I believe it doesn't necessarily say it here on the form. Oh, yeah,
It's
but
25
in no,
highway hours.
in no event can she exceed 40 hours per week. And the way that was explained to me is perhaps there might be a week where she doesn't need to do the 5 hours at the transfer station.
But, okay, but it says here, in addition to 25 highway hours, and then it says part-time benefited. It's not part-time. Not if we're adding these many hours, right?
Well, she's already full-time
She's
benefited.
already putting in over 20, so she's already benefited.
So she got 25 at the highway, 5 at the transfer.
No,
Is it
she's got
20 and 5?
20 at the highway, 5 at the transfer station, which would allow up to 15 for water.
So then
And in the-
isn't she
and in the
full-time
pa- In
benefited?
the past, I'm sorry, Chris, in the past, it was up to 5 because she was already doing 10 hours in the treasury during that vacancy.
Additional 10 hours as needed, not to exceed 40. So she's actually, the box up above should be checked as full-time benefited, should it not?
No, this particular position is part-time benefit.
Because if the water department wanted to, they could go out and hire a part-time person to do that role?
Because
Well, I mean, this particular position is part-time. It's less than,
in
yeah,
one department.
20
It's just
20
Two
hours.
departments together, put
Right.
it.
This confuses me. It's like, these are two different jobs. Why don't we have two different people doing them?
because of FSLA.
Okay,
Once you hit 20 hours, even if it's in, and this is what you have to be careful of.
thank you. I just want to know.
Yeah, okay, let's just say okay, my office assistant works 16 hours a week.
Okay,
Okay, that's part-time, not benefited.
okay.
Position opens up, oh God, in the COA,
Okay,
10 hours a week.
all right. These so far,
She gets hired.
yeah.
Guess what? 16 and 10 is over 20.
Oh, I get it.
Same entity,
Put them
even two different
together.
departments.
Same government entity.
Right,
Okay,
exactly.
Okay,
thank you, sorry.
all right. Did we had a motion, did we vote on that? Sorry.
The motion to approve it is to approve it, provided that she at no point in time exceeds 40 hours per week
Okay,
between her 3 funding sources.
Second?
all right, here a second. Okay, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No?
No, comment?
Yeah.
Would it make sense at some point to maybe consolidate those 3 positions into one job
Perhaps.
with the 3 different funding
I mean, I
sources?
don't know how it's been handled in the past.
Wait, would you mean like under a DPW, administrative assistant?
There we
You
go.
got a plan.
But short of that, couldn't we go ahead and move it in that direction anyways? All right, next,
Yep, next, under the assessors?
PCF David Zagrowski.
Jaworski.
Yep, interim assessor, increase of rate from 26.05 to 27.12 per hour, up to 15 hours a week, continuation of the interim assessor position, excuse me, effective July 1st, 2023.
Okay.
Now, so I'll do that as a motion.
Okay, that was a motion? Have a
Second.
Didn't we strip all the money out of that account? At the budget? Didn't we, because they were going to go contract?
We put money back in from ARPA.
It's in ARPA temporarily, so he's paid out of the ARPA funds temporarily until hopefully we get to a special town meeting, and we will request a transfer of funds from the assessor's, one of the assessor's expense account back into the principal assessor's wage account.
So would this fit in the money that we've already approved out of ARPA? Theoretically?
It's signed by the town accountant.
Well, yeah, again, here's the perspective, depending on when that special town meeting is. I don't know what Y is, so I can't do the equation.
Right.
That's the intent.
Yeah, that is the intent, correct. If you know, as we look at this as it goes on, if, you know, special town meeting happened to end up in December, then okay, maybe the assessors would have to come back and ask for some additional ARPA funds to get them there, again, with the intent that once the special town meeting comes, that the funds are transferred within their own accounts and goes back into ARPA.
Yeah, Madam Chair, you have got to have the special town meeting prior to December 31st. The town administrator is going to have to be at this meeting. He can't retire prior to this with all these
I'm hearing you.
deck chairs being shuffled at the last minute as the Titanic sinks.
I'm just going to take a quick look at my.
I believe I'll be on vacation that week.
Yeah, he's got so much vacation built up, he'll be gone for like the last 2 months, probably, right? I just want to check on one quickie thing. I thought we had set a time on the ARPA money. I'm just going to double check one quick thing.
I didn't think so.
If I can find it. Or it was an amount.
It was an amount. And it was like 75 or 7,700 or 7,000.
That was 50% of what they needed for the year.
Yeah.
To get out to December 31st.
Yeah, and I guess we were thinking it would take him a certain amount of months or payrolls to do that, but I can't pick it up real quick in my thing. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. If no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Who seconded?
Second.
I did.
Joy did. Sure.
Take the police department up as a package. Motion to approve PCF of Anthony Yon, full-time police officer, benefit eligible September 2nd, $27.95 per hour. PCF for Jennifer Bean, dispatch, full-time to part-time status effective August 13th, 2023. PCF regarding Ryan Holmes, full-time patrol officer, retirement effective September 6th, 2023. PCF Jeremy La Rochelle, part-time patrol officer, separation effective 8/1/2023, and PCF for Davis O'Connell, dispatcher, resignation effective June 22nd, 2023.
Okay. All right, have a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Joy. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Veterans Department as a package. PCF regarding Jerry Paquette, Veteran Service Officer, extended leave of absence through September 30th, 2023. PCF Michelle Murdoch, temporary Veteran Service Officer, extended temporary employment through September 30th, 2023.
Okay. Motion, can I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Joy. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
My understanding is that Michelle was the Veterans Officer in Easthampton.
Correct.
I don't believe she's currently in that position anymore since they're advertising for a replacement, so I just want to make sure she's still available to
Yes.
provide this service to the town?
He is.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Good. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Fire Department. Motion for PCF Zachariah Bigda, resignation effective February 16th, 2023. PCF for Shane Gilbert, resignation November 25th, 2022. PCF for Brian Saminsky, resignation effective May 17th, 2023. PCF for Rochelle Jenkins Capello, separation effective July 31st, 2022. PCF for Jeffrey Russell, separation January 5th, 2023. PCF for Brandon Bailey's, status change from probationary firefighter Hamden 6 certification at $15.04 to firefighter EMT basic at $16.92 per hour. And PCF for Taylor Paschal, status change firefighter, $15 to firefighter EMT basic at $16.92. And I think,
And somebody's just to know,
just want to, actually, I want to strike those from my motion, those last two. Pull those out from the motion. So remove Brandon, remove Tyler.
okay. So can we, I think we've got all sorts
First
of
five.
information on the other ones are in the package. I think they're pretty clear. Yeah, okay. So we'll take up Bigda, Gilbert, Szymanski, Janet Capello, Russell as a package. And we'll have a second, please?
Second.
Joy, okay. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. All right.
So just related to the last two, I know the forms are in front of us and I know they're signed, but I also know that they tried to hold an emergency meeting of the PPB and couldn't because the proposed wages for the EMTs didn't match up to the pay scales, and they were looking for clarification.
Okay.
But that was two different.
Oh, it's not these two?
It's not these two.
Okay.
The two that were in question have been pulled off.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, they're not in our package.
They're not in
The
fact.
motion to approve those two PCFs as formally stated.
Okay. So the two,
Told you I wasn't at the meeting.
two status changes for Brendan Blaze and Tyler Paschal. Okay.
Yep.
Could we have a second then?
I seconded.
All
Oh,
right.
wait, oh, second, sorry. I
Putting them
thought
back
we were
on.
back in the,
Yeah, we're putting them back on, so.
Yep, okay.
Second,
I'll
Joy?
second.
All right. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye, okay.
Motion to approve the one-day permit for Matthew Walsh Wine and Malt, Conant Park Pavilion, September 10th, 2023, noon to 3 p.m. for a birthday party.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Perfect,
All right, Stephen, so yours.
all right. And then the next one,
Another party?
That one
Nope.
got canceled or
that one's
recalled.
canceled out.
Oh, okay.
It actually ended up being the same day as the Lions Club barbecue, and the entity actually found another location. So that one is pulled out. So next up then, moving along, will be warrants. Stephen?
So I'll do some creative reading here. No, there's no creativity involved. These are the warrants that have been signed since our last report. Warrant 24-2V, negative $300 vendor warrant. P24-3 payroll in the amount of $286,733.37. PD 24-3 in the amount of $46,661.93, the payroll deductions. PD 24-3A, $163,926.73. This is the payroll deduction with retirement. W24-4 in the amount of $211,813.08, vendor warrant. W24-4A, the amount of $1,122.17, vendor warrant. Canceled by W24-4V in the like amount. And P24-5 in the amount of $292,108.02, payroll. Payroll deduction, PD 24-5, the amount of $48,655.53. W24-6, $1,483,286.63. The vendor warrant with Hampshire Regional Operations. P24-7, $297,604.69 is another payroll. Payroll deduction, PD 24-7, the amount $49,668.51. And final vendor warrant W24-8 in the amount of $97,848.16.
Okay. If anybody had any questions on the innards of those warrants, feel free to raise those. I think at this point in time, we had a couple things that I know I had checked in with Bradley on personally, but other than that, I'm satisfied with things. All right, thank you for getting the signatures done, and we'll move on.
Thank you for standing, help getting signatures.
Well, those
Thank
couple,
you.
yeah. And you've got one for tonight too, right? So anyway, next one, we've got some minutes to approve. And we have some minutes to approve. and
Going
actually,
back in the records here.
the first two, I guess we need a little explanation. So February 5th, 2019 and October 22, 2019.
Good days.
Obviously, something didn't get approved at the time, or we lost signatures or whatever, but my question is going to be, on the first one, none of us were on the board at the time.
You can still approve them.
Sign.
Again? Okay,
It's just like, because someone wasn't at a meeting,
yeah.
they don't have to abstain from the vote because they weren't there.
Motion to approve February 5th, 2019, as well as October 22nd, 2019 minutes as presented.
Second.
All right, February 5th, 19, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And then, next. Who wants to make another motion?
Are we good to take them up as a package, or are there corrections?
I don't know, did anybody have any corrections or things that they noticed here?
I wasn't
have-
here.
I know, none of us were here, that was on that one, but, yeah, no, on the
The 23s?
March 23
Yeah,
ones.
the badge,
Yep.
no.
No, that was a new one for you, too, yeah. No, I don't believe I saw any issues on that in particular, so I'm good.
Motion to approve March 9th, March 16th, May 9th, May 23, all of 2023 minutes as presented.
Second.
All right,
Yes.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Those are
Then
just for
we've
you
got
to sign.
Two more, I think.
Did all of them.
Yep, May 23, you got that one, too?
Yep.
All over
Okay.
2023.
23, okay, missed that one, sorry. Yep.
We are an efficient machine.
Oh, we are a very efficient machine. Okay, so all those minutes have been approved, and that will catch us up a little bit, which is good. I don't think there's anything in particular on pending items that we need to talk about. There are some of the same ones that are on there, just as reminders. We've talked about the compensation study. We do need to come back to those draft amendments to the PQB rules and regulations at some point. Get that tidied up. Calendar meetings, we have the 12th and the 26th, and those will be our next time around. And with that, we're going to be moving into an executive session. And let me read the rationale, reasons why here. We'll move into an executive session very shortly on, per MGL, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Parsons will. MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Dispatch. MGL Chapter 30A, 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Highway. MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements. Executive session minutes, May 23, 2023, June 2023, and July 11th, 2023. And we would be doing executive session and not returning to open session. So with that, could I, that was sort of the motion that we move into executive session. If I can have a second, yes, and a roll call vote, please.
Lumber, aye.
Johnson, aye.
Piper, aye.
Valley, aye.
Falls aye, okay, we are
Who
adjourned.
made the motion?
The chair.
I did,
Chair.
I made the
I
motion.
second it.
We are adjourned at 9:28, and we will be back in a couple minutes for executive session.